Seriously, don't even think about having a baby with a guy you've already broken up with. Or did you think a child would keep us connected forever? How naive. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? Looking back, breaking up was the best decision I ever made. Staying with someone so delusional would have kept me from the happiness I have now. Today, I want to share my unforgettable dark past and how I overcame it. My name is Jessica, and I'm a 53-year-old housewife who enjoys doing household chores while watching the morning news. When I was 38, I lived peacefully with my husband Mike. However, around that time, a bit of unrest started to creep into our home. Mike began responding to me with intimidating indifference, saying things like, "So what?" or "and?" He'd cut me off with, "I'm busy right now," leaving me feeling dismissed and treated with disdain. It wasn't always like this. Mike used to be someone who loved to chat and would crack jokes to make me laugh whenever he had the chance. But then, something changed. It was such a sudden shift that I wondered if I had done something wrong, but I couldn't pinpoint anything specific. One day, I noticed a faint lipstick mark on the back of a shirt Mike had brought to the laundry. He had come home late from work that day, claiming he had to work overtime. Given that his office was male-dominated, it seemed unlikely that someone with lipstick had leaned against his back. If that were the case, it was too unsettling to consider. Could it be a woman? I wondered. Although I naturally jumped to that conclusion, a lipstick stain alone wasn't solid evidence. There could be countless explanations, like accidentally bumping into someone. I decided to wait a bit longer and observe Mike's behavior more closely. Ironically, paying just a little more attention revealed a slew of evidence of infidelity. For instance, Mike always got up around 2 a.m. to use the bathroom at night. I had never thought much of it before, but it turned out he was using that time to talk to a woman on the phone in the bathroom. I also started finding long strands of hair inside his suit jacket, and sometimes his handkerchief had traces of what appeared to be lipstick. The most damning piece of evidence was a tinted lip balm I found when I borrowed Mike's car for the first time in a while. It would be one thing if Mike used colored lip balm, but this was clearly not his. After 10 years of marriage, the frustration of seeing Mike being taken by someone else, combined with the loneliness and the resurgence of my affection for him, was overwhelming. Is there really no chance of starting over? Isn't there something I can do to make him notice me again? Isn't there a way to rekindle what has cooled off? Just as I was grappling with these thoughts, I discovered I was pregnant. I thought the timing of the pregnancy was a blessing from God. We didn't have children, and the monotony in our relationship might have contributed to Mike's affair. Maybe this pregnancy could be the chance for him to change. Holding on to that hope, I told Mike about the pregnancy, but then, what the heck? Give me a break. This is such a hassle. Let's just break up. I couldn't believe my ears. Looking back, I realized my judgment and expectations were too naive. The likelihood of a man who is cheating coming back is extremely rare. Life isn't like a TV drama where things just work out smoothly. But back then, I truly believed that since we married out of love, we could surely find our way back to each other. Is that really how you're going to respond? It's your child too. Even for the child, it's better if a dad like me isn't around. You've realized that too, haven't you? Seeing Mike's smirking face made my heart skip a beat. That I'm having an affair, pretending not to know about Mike's infidelity and hoping the pregnancy would magically fix everything felt like being pushed off a cliff. I had thought that revealing the affair would create tension and push Mike away for good, but that was another misjudgment. I wanted you to find out. I dropped so many hints, but you never said a word. I was at my wit's end. What I was waiting for you to say was, "This is unthinkable. Let's get a divorce." You really made me go through a lot of trouble. You're kidding, right? I wouldn't bother with such a hassle if it were a lie. I have a cute 24-year-old girlfriend now, a 38-year-old about to get fat from pregnancy. I have no use for you anymore. Here, take this as alimony or whatever. Just agree to the divorce, he said. I cried for 3 days and nights. Eventually, when Mike stopped coming home, I found the resolve to divorce. 5 years have passed since then. I was afraid of growing old and being single, but fortunately, I remarried my childhood friend Steve, also a divorcee. We lived modestly with our child Chloe. Steve had also been cheated on by his wife, making him a fellow survivor of a messy divorce. Sharing the same pain made life with him very comfortable. On our anniversary, Steve would book a fancy restaurant every year, and for my birthday, he would get me something slightly expensive. I felt cherished. I hoped these days would continue forever. As we celebrated another anniversary this year, it was supposed to be a delightful dinner at our usual upscale restaurant. Wow, Jessica, is that you? Mike gasped upon seeing my face. What? Why are you here? I couldn't hide my disgust. What a tragedy. I had accidentally run into Mike coming out of the restroom. What? I'm here for a business dinner. Unlike you, I'm busy, huh? Mike glanced over my shoulder and approached briskly. Wow, so you had the child, huh? The one you were pregnant with when we split? That's gross. He grabbed my child's hand, looked closely, and began to say outrageous things. Seriously, don't have the child of a guy you've broken up with. Oh, could it be that you couldn't forget about me, thinking that if you had a child, I'd never be able to cut ties with you? How naive is that? Hey, what do you say? Mike, grinning, seemed to be having a great time spitting the child around by the hand. The child's face twisted in distress, and he started crying out loud. Daddy, Mommy, help. Some stranger is taking me. There, I'm your daddy, and your mommy's right over there. You're just like her, a stupid child. Just as Mike blurted out those words, a man towering over 6 feet appeared from behind and forcefully grabbed Mike's arm. Excuse me, but that boy is mine. Mike's bewildered expression almost made me burst out laughing. Huh? Is this guy your new husband, Jessica? I didn't answer Mike's question. I'm not sure what you've been saying, but surely you don't think you can make someone's child cry and get away with it, do you? The tall man glared at Mike, a glimpse of a tattoo peeking out from his arm. Noticing it, Mike instantly turned pale. Wait, hey Jessica, tell your husband to stop. Excuse me, that woman is not my wife. Confused, Mike glanced back and forth between me, the man, and the screaming child. Whoa, what? Then who is this child? Before he knew it, the man had Mike's arms firmly bound. This man is a lunatic repeating nonsense. Someone call the staff. There's a man here harming a child. The man's outcry stirred the restaurant. What a day this turned out to be on such an important anniversary, I thought to myself with a smirk. It certainly became a memorable day, although unexpectedly. Waiter, over here. I saw this man forcibly grabbing a child's arm. I called out. My words left Mike gaping in shock. Wait, Jessica, what? What's going on? Seriously, I don't understand what's happening. As Mike frantically protested, I said, I am not that man's wife, and that child is neither mine nor yours. But he was right behind you. You were blocking the narrow passage to the restroom entrance, standing there like a post, preventing the boy from entering. He was simply following his father to the restroom, and you obstructed him. What? Really? Mike's face fell as he realized the gravity of his mistake. You might want to make people the butt of your jokes, but you should be careful about jumping to conclusions. Why don't you look around a bit more? Shut up. I don't need to be lectured by you. Indeed, my valuable words probably wouldn't reach someone like you. I'm not suspicious. Well, any man who approaches an unknown child, grabs their arm, and then uses baby talk like I'm your daddy is undoubtedly suspicious no matter how you look at it. But that was. And then you tell the woman in front of you, Mommy is right there, isn't she? Are you still under the impression that we're married? As I said this with a smirk, Mike turned red with anger and shouted, Don't mess with me. But the louder Mike's voice, the tighter the grip of the man holding him. Ow. Hey, man, back off. I'm innocent. Innocent. It's undeniable that you made my son cry, isn't it? But that was a misunderstanding. I quickly interjected. It's a fact that you misunderstood and grabbed someone else's son. Mike glared at me and said, You jerk. Yikes, getting glared at by a suspicious person. How scary, I responded sarcastically, feigning fear in my voice. This seemed to irritate Mike even more, and he began to struggle wildly against the man restraining him. Still thinking you and I are a couple, huh? Or could it be you haven't forgotten about me? I taunted, using the same accusation he had thrown at me earlier. Predictably, Mike got angrier, and sensing the danger, the tall man quickly pinned him to the floor. If you thought you could escape from me, you're sorely mistaken. While the man might have meant it lightly, the tattoo visible on his arm made the threat seem all too real. Mike must have thought, this might be the end for me today. Come on, Jessica, tell them it's a misunderstanding, Mike pleaded. But dragging someone else's child by the hand isn't just a misunderstanding, I retorted. I thought he was my child, Mike said, his voice breaking like a child's, which made me burst out laughing. You claim he is my child without even acknowledging or paying child support. Did we ever discuss acknowledgement or child support after our divorce? Well, no. But you knew I had no intention of acknowledging, which is why you never contacted me, right? Idiot. I wouldn't just let it go. If I had a child, I'd make sure you acknowledged and paid up one way or another. Then why? That time, the pregnancy test was wrong. I went to the gynecologist, and it turned out I wasn't pregnant, which solidified my decision to divorce. Yes, during those 3 days when the topic of divorce came up and Mike stopped coming home, it's true that I spent that time crying. But considering I might have had a child, I couldn't just divorce without clarification. So I first went to the gynecologist. I wanted to sort out alimony, child support, and future living expenses in my head, even if we were going to divorce. If avoiding the divorce would benefit the child, I was prepared to endure. However, at the gynecologist, there were no signs of pregnancy, but they did find a tumor on my ovary. During the surgery for that, I happened to share a room with Steve's mother. Steve and I were childhood friends, so I knew his parents well. Reuniting with Steve during his visits, we became close again. At one point, I thought of the pregnancy as a blessing from God to make things work with Mike, but in reality, it brought me to someone who made me realize that parting ways with Mike was the right decision. It also led to the early detection of my illness. Despite having one ovary removed, last year I gave birth to Chloe, my child with Steve. It may seem like I've been through a lot, but in truth, it's all been for the best. Upon learning everything, Mike turned pale and muttered, "No way, I got dumped by that woman." Needless to say, I couldn't help but laugh. It's no surprise a young woman wouldn't want to be with an aging man like him. At that moment, a police officer appeared. It seems someone from the restaurant had called them. Mike received a stern warning from the police. The misunderstanding was cleared up, and he apologized profusely to the child's family, preventing the situation from escalating. The scolding from the police seemed to have hit him hard. He even came to apologize to me. Since Mike doesn't know where I live now, he actually went to my parents' house to express his apologies to my mother. He admitted that the way we parted was the worst and that he was wrong. Aging, abandoned by his affair partner, and finding himself increasingly isolated, the recent incident seemed to have broken him, leaving him to feel the loneliness of having no one to comfort him. Well, it's too late for apologies now as far as I'm concerned. I continue to ignore Mike. Honestly, if we hadn't met there, I probably would have gradually forgotten about him altogether. Steve noticed I hadn't returned to our table for a while and came to the restroom to check on me. However, he decided to watch from the shadows, thinking this might be my first and last chance to get back at Mike. Of course, I was ready to jump in if anything happened, but that guy restraining Mike was just too strong. That guy apparently used to live in Mexico and was the captain of a football team there, I mentioned. No wonder he's strong. Guess I had no role to play there. I was seriously scared, thought he was from some dangerous profession or something, Steve said with a laugh, and I couldn't help but laugh along with him. Normally, one might say something like, "Not very manly of you," but Steve doesn't have to deal with Mike, and I believe it was a problem I needed to resolve myself. I acknowledged that I lacked strength during the divorce. In the end, I simply went along with the divorce as Mike wished and received a standard amount of alimony from Mike and his affair partner. Reality doesn't always progress like a fairy tale, so getting an exorbitant alimony was out of the question, and I had lost the strength to fight back. But I believe I finally became truly strong by standing up to Mike with unwavering resolve in the end. Now I can proudly face Steve and Chloe. Coincidentally, this year's anniversary became a new beginning for me. Now, with Steve becoming a freelance architect and his income doubling, I quit my part-time job and am enjoying life as a relaxed housewife. When I ask Chloe, who's somewhat in a rebellious phase, to do something, she complains. But when I stay silent, she quietly helps out. This trait of hers is something that only Steve and I secretly find irresistible. Though Chloe is our only child due to a late pregnancy, our family of 3 and our 2 dogs live a life that's lively, perhaps too much so. Despite never having children with Mike, I was able to conceive and give birth at an older age with Steve, even with just one ovary remaining. In a way, I consider this to be fate. As a child, I secretly dreamed of marrying that special someone destined just for me, and who would have thought that dream would come true with a second marriage? Sometimes I allow myself to indulge in such dreamy thoughts. With these reflections, I cherish the ordinary days that come my way, days that are anything but ordinary, filled with love and gratitude.
More champagne, Mom? Larry asked. refilling my glass before I could even answer. I gave a hesitant smile, nervously glancing at my son and his fiancée. We were having a small family dinner to celebrate their engagement, but something didn't feel right in my stomach. "To your happiness, Laura," I said, raising my glass. Laura clinked her glass against mine with a purr. I took a big sip. "There's something we want to talk about tonight," Larry said, sharing a knowing look with Laura. "We're planning a big engagement party next month. Only the best for us." I laughed a bit nervously. "That sounds wonderful for you both. But aren't those parties expensive?" "Oh, we're not paying for it," Laura said casually, waving her hand. "That's going to be your gift to us." I almost choked on my drink. "I'm sorry?" "As Larry's mother, it's your duty to pay," Laura continued. "We expect you to chip in at least $30,000. Consider it an investment in your son's future." They couldn't be serious. $30,000 for a party? I asked, shocked. "Do you realize how unreasonable that is?" "Don't be ridiculous, Mom," Larry cut in. "You make good money, and you have all that inheritance from Dad. You've been saving it all." The mention of my husband, who had recently died from cancer, felt like a fresh wound. I pulled back, hurt by their harsh words. "That money is my savings for retirement and to cover my expenses. You didn't even discuss this with me first." Laura rolled her eyes dramatically. "Still on about being consulted? Get over it already. You're the mother of the groom. This is what's expected. Just pay up and be happy we're even letting you help." "You should feel honored we're inviting you," Larry sneered. "Just write the check so we can start planning." I sat there stunned, unable to believe their arrogance and lack of care. I tried once more to reason with my son. "Honey, be reasonable. You can have a nice party without it costing so much. Maybe we can cut back a little?" Larry slammed his fist on the table, making the glasses shake. "I knew you'd be stingy," he yelled. "Some mother you are, not even supporting your only son." Tears filled my eyes as I faced their scornful looks. I had always pampered Larry, but I never thought he could be so cruel and disrespectful. I stood up quickly, feeling disgusted by the two unpleasant people in my home. "I think you should leave now," I said in a low voice. Laura jumped up and grabbed my shoulders with her sharp red nails. "Don't even think about shirking your responsibilities," she hissed, her breath heavy with perfume assaulting my nose. "Pay up, or you can forget about having a relationship with Larry and seeing any future grandchildren." I pushed her off forcefully. "Get out," I yelled. "Leave my house this instant." They left without another word, but I caught them smirking triumphantly at each other. My heart sank as I realized the engagement celebration I had hoped for would only bring greed, manipulation, and pain. The next evening, tired from a long day at work, but determined to resolve the conflict, I prepared a simple pasta dinner, hoping for a frank discussion with Larry. I heard the front door slam and braced myself as loud footsteps approached. "Something smells good," Larry said as he walked into the kitchen and headed straight for the wine cabinet. My hopes lifted briefly, then faded as Laura followed him in, reeking of strong perfume. So much for a private chat. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" I asked, trying to sound calm as I drained the pasta. "You're going to love what we have planned," Laura said cheerfully, ignoring my tone as she dug through her flashy handbag. "We met with the wedding planner today, and everything is set. All we need is one little thing from you." She pulled out a folder stuffed with brochures and invoices. "Just sign here for the $70,000 wedding package." I froze, a chill running down my spine. $70,000, I exclaimed. "For a one-day event? That's absurd." "It's our special day," Larry complained. "Don't I deserve the best?" I tried to appeal to his better nature. "Son, be reasonable. Let's have a small, meaningful ceremony instead of this extravagance." Laura slammed the folder down. "You clueless fool. Who said you have a say in this?" she screamed. "You'll pay every penny to give your only son the wedding of his dreams." Anger surged within me, but before I could respond, We all turned in surprise to see my daughter Linda standing in the doorway, looking determined. I was so caught up in the argument that I didn't even notice her come in. "Stay out of this," Laura snapped at my daughter, Linda, who is a bold, tattooed graphic novelist. "This doesn't concern you." "The hell it doesn't," Linda shot back. "You don't talk to my mother like that." She walked over and stood next to me protectively. Normally, I might have been a bit upset by her stepping in. I've always tried to be the strong, independent head of our family. But right then, I was grateful for her support. Larry threw his hands up dramatically. "I ask for one simple wedding, and my whole family turns against me." He pointed at Linda. "This is all your fault. You're filling Mom's head with crazy ideas. She owes me this money and her loyalty." Linda crossed her arms. "Mom owes you nothing but basic respect, which you clearly can't give back," she said. "She raised you all by herself after Dad died, working hard to give you every chance in life. And this is how you thank her? By using her?" Larry had no comeback, just mumbled under his breath. Linda turned to me, holding my hand firmly. "Stay strong, Mom. Set your limits and demand the respect you deserve. I'm here for you." Feeling a surge of relief, my doubts washed away by my daughter's firm support, I stood up taller. "You both have two choices," I said loudly to Larry and Laura. "Treat me and my daughter with basic decency, or leave our lives for good." Laura opened her mouth, probably ready to say something harsh, but then she saw Linda's stern look and thought better of it. She grabbed Larry by the ear and dragged him out. I squeezed Linda's hand, tears of gratitude in my eyes. "How did I get so lucky to have a daughter like you?" She gave a wry smile. "Just being a chip off the old block. Now, let's eat that pasta and plan our next move. These jerks don't know who they're dealing with." The next week was tough, filled with uncertainty. My phone buzzed nonstop with demanding texts and voicemails from Larry, angry when I didn't call back right away. I started ignoring his calls, not having the energy to deal with his rants. When Saturday afternoon arrived, I decided to treat myself to a manicure to cheer myself up. As I relaxed and the technician worked on my nails, my phone buzzed again. Normally, I would ignore it, but this time, I saw it was Larry's number and curiosity got the better of me. "Hi, honey," I answered cautiously. "It's your witch of a mother," came Laura's harsh voice instead, making my blood start to boil. I was about to hang up when I heard Larry in the background. "Is the old bag actually taking your call? She's been dodging mine all week." Then Larry's voice came through clearly. "Mom, what the heck? I've been calling nonstop. Have you thought more about funding the wedding? The coordinator is on my case." I was ready to say no firmly, but Laura cut me off. "Oh, forget it already. She's clearly a lost cause." I heard a slap, like she swatted his arm. "Your mother is a selfish old prune. Once we're married, we'll change all the account passwords so she can't touch our money." My eyes widened. "Our money?" More noise followed. Then Laura sneered. "Why are we even inviting her to the wedding? She'll just show up in some cheap outfit from a discount store." Their loud laughter made my blood boil, but Larry's next words were worse. "Right. And she'll complain about helping us, as if that tiny insurance payout compares to what I make in a month." I was furious. That tiny payout was nearly $500,000 I had saved for retirement, not wasted like my irresponsible son. Laura laughed loudly. "Oh, please, we both know it was your dad's money that got you that job. Your mom couldn't handle money without a man's help." "Absolutely," Larry laughed. "And we're using that inheritance money way better, like our first-class trips to Australia." Their laughter enraged me. I pressed the red button on my phone so hard I almost cracked the screen. Hearing their cruel words confirmed my suspicions and shook me deeply. My hands shook with anger and outrage. I quickly waved off the concerned looks from the nail technician, threw some cash on the counter, and rushed out the door. I drove home as fast as I could, filled with the need to talk to someone about what happened. Thankfully, Linda was already there, her motorcycle parked unevenly on the driveway. I burst through the front door, and Linda jumped up from the couch, surprised by my upset look. I poured out the whole story, feeling enraged. Linda's green eyes flashed with anger. "Those deceivers," she shouted. "I knew it. They never cared about family or celebration. They just see you as a money source." "I feel so betrayed and used," I said, feeling bitter and trying not to cry. "My own son, how could he?" Linda took me by the shoulders, looking me in the eye. "Mom, listen. We need to get proof and expose these lowlifes for who they are." She slapped her hand with her fist, showing she meant business. "Contact the wedding planner. Get all the documents showing plans made without your oak. I'll look into Laura's background too. I bet her family is rich despite her act." I felt hope and courage rise in me again. Linda was right. It was time to take control and fight back. I hugged her tightly, more thankful than ever for her honesty and strength. "Let's expose them," I said. Over the next 4 weeks, Linda and I collected a lot of evidence showing Larry and Laura's dishonesty. Linda found out that Laura came from a very wealthy family. Her dad owns a big real estate investment company and could easily pay for their extravagant wedding. Meanwhile, I got financial records from the wedding planner showing the huge costs Larry and Laura wanted me to cover $95,000 and counting. "We have everything we need to confront these cheaters," Linda announced, spreading the papers on the dining table. "Let's invite them over to talk about wedding plans, and then reveal what we know," she suggested, her eyes shining with determination. I called them, pretending I was ready to discuss paying for the wedding. They took the bait and agreed to come right away. They arrived on time, the doorbell ringing loudly. Larry and Laura walked in, as usual, full of arrogance and the smell of expensive perfume. "Where's my check?" Larry demanded immediately, never one for subtlety. Laura elbowed him, then put on a fake sweet smile. "Yes, do tell us the good news," she said cheerily. "We have so many decisions to finalize for our big day." I gestured for them to sit down. Linda quietly handed me a thick manila envelope full of damning evidence. My heart raced, but I felt determined. I clasped my hands tightly on the table. "Before we discuss any more plans, I have some concerns," I said. I pulled the papers from the envelope and spread them out in front of me. According to the wedding planner, the current expenses total $95,000. "Can you explain this?" I asked. Laura scoffed loudly. "It's the wedding of the century. What do you expect?" "I expect honest communication about money and shared responsibility," I replied calmly. "For example, why don't Laura's very wealthy parents contribute their fair share?" I showed them a copy of her dad's business profile, showing he was worth tens of millions. They could easily afford it. Laura turned pale, and Larry got angry. "Leave Laura's family out of this. It's my wedding, my financial support," he said, pointing at me. "And you're my mother, so just write the check." Expecting their denial, I calmly slid over a pile of invoices and contracts. "Actually, these documents show otherwise. They have my forged signature authorizing $230,000 in non-refundable payments so far. Care to explain that?" Laura gasped. "Are you accusing us of fraud?" From beside me, Linda slammed her fist down. "Damn right she is," she shouted, surprising them into silence. She then spread out the rest of the contents from the envelope: bank statements, screenshots, phone records. Clear evidence of their lies and manipulation lay scattered dramatically across the table. "It's all here, clear as day," Linda said with disgust. "You've been exploiting my mother's love and trust, never caring about family, just what you can get from her." "You were spying on us," Larry said in outrage. "Collecting evidence against your fraud," I corrected calmly. "And now you'll cancel this sham wedding immediately." Laura jumped up furious. "How dare you?" she yelled. "I will marry Larry with or without your money." She turned to my son, expecting support. But Larry just sat there, pale and quiet, overwhelmed by the revelations. Finally, Laura rolled her eyes. "You're spineless mama's boy," she muttered, grabbed her flashy handbag and stormed out. At the doorway, she turned to give one last angry look. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "We won't forget." Then she left in a huff, the smell of her perfume lingering in the air. I looked straight at my shaken son. "Nor will we," I said quietly. "Now leave." He got up quickly, but before he left, he mumbled a soft yet clear threat. "I'll make you pay for this." The day I had dreaded finally arrived, Larry and Laura's lavish wedding. Despite our previous confrontation, they went ahead with their extravagant plans, using even more of the retirement money I had put in Larry's accounts. So there I sat, a reluctant participant in their over-the-top wedding. All around me, guests who had drunk too much wandered under extravagant floral decorations that cost more than my first car. The highlight was an 8-tiered cake decorated with handcrafted sugar flowers. Larry and Laura's smug faces were displayed above everything in a huge golden frame. Next to me, Linda slouched in her ripped jeans and combat boots, her pixie-cut green hair standing out against the pastel bridesmaid dresses. We watched the lavish event unfold, barely hiding our disgust. Then, the music changed to a grand wedding march, and the crowd quieted as Larry took his place under a brightly decorated arch. My heart tightened. He looked so much like his father, handsome in his tuxedo, radiating charm. There was no sign of the greedy boy I had confronted weeks ago. As Laura walked down the aisle in a fancy dress that I suspected was charged to my credit card, old memories and sadness surged within me. Over 28 years ago, I had walked that same path, full of naive dreams of love and family that quickly turned sour. My faith in love had faded with my husband's death, and now the son we had raised showed me the same cold disregard. As the ceremony went on, anger built inside me. I would not stay silent or support this loveless marriage any longer. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping loudly across the polished floor. Everyone looked at me. Linda took my hand, giving me strength. Clearing my throat, I met Larry's shocked look. "I apologize, but I cannot stay silent about this farce," I declared. The guests murmured in shock. Larry's face turned red, and he looked embarrassed under my stern gaze. Before he could say anything, Laura pushed past him, her eyes full of anger. "How dare you ruin my perfect day?" she shouted, coming toward me with her hands raised aggressively. I stepped back, recoiling from Laura's hostile energy. Linda immediately stepped in front of the bride. "Back off," she said firmly, standing protectively in front of me. A surprised murmur spread through the room. No one else moved to help. Larry kept his head down, not looking at me, and didn't try to stop Laura. My heart broke. All illusions were gone. I no longer had a son. The greedy, cowardly stranger in front of me would never again receive my support or resources. I moved past Linda to speak to everyone. "Let all bear witness to this fake, pretentious wedding," I said loudly. I refused to support these deceivers any longer, and I cut all ties. This farce ends now. I turned and walked briskly to the exit, my skirt swirling dramatically. As I passed my shocked son, I paused long enough to echo his earlier threat, "You'll regret this." Then I walked away confidently, Linda right beside me, our footsteps echoing a firm departure from that toxic place. We stepped into the dim sunlight outside, the doors closing behind us, cutting off Laura's angry shouts. I took a deep, freeing breath. Relief washed over me as Linda and I got into her car. "Thank you for being there with me," I told her, patting her tattooed hand. She smiled slightly. "Are you kidding? I've wanted to stand up to Laura for years." As we drove away from the extravagant deceit, tears came to my eyes, but this time they were tears of relief, not sadness or regret. Looking at my brave, loyal daughter smiling back at me, I knew I would never be alone again. In the months after that disastrous wedding, I changed my phone number, moved to a new place, and shifted my remaining assets, cutting off all contact with Larry and his toxic bride. I heard through rumors that they had their honeymoon in Australia, likely using what was left of my retirement savings. Let them indulge, I thought bitterly. Reality will catch up soon. Sure enough, just a year later, Larry showed up at my doorstep. I came home to find him sitting there, unshaven and smelling of stale cigarettes. I was so surprised that I froze, my grocery bag slipping from my hands. Larry's eyes showed a flash of embarrassment. He tried to help me pick up my things, then said quietly, "Hey Ma, can we talk?" I walked past him without a word to unlock my front door, motioning for him to come inside. He lingered awkwardly as I slowly put away the groceries, steeling myself before finally speaking. "What do you want?" I asked bluntly. Larry cleared his throat. "I need your help, just temporarily," he quickly added, as if that made his request any less bold. "I'm between jobs right now, and Laura is upset because I can't cover her expenses." "Absolutely not," I said sharply, cutting off his rambling. I crossed my arms, feeling both anger and satisfaction. "You made this mess, now deal with it." Larry looked shocked, not used to such a direct denial. "Come on, Ma, I'm really struggling here. Can't you lend me a few thousand? I'll pay you back, I swear." I stood firm, unmoving. "You never planned to pay me back the first time you emptied my accounts," I reminded him coldly. "Why should I believe you now?" He blushed. "I was wrong before, okay, but I'm still your son." With a swift motion of my hand, I cut him off. "You lost that privilege long ago. I have no son," I declared, pointing at him. "Now you face the consequences. Get out." He tried to speak, but no words came out against my firm disgust. With drooping shoulders, Larry left my house and my life once again. It was about time he experienced the reality of his actions. I locked the door quickly, feeling a rush of vindication before any pity or regret could set in. There was no forgiving someone who repeatedly betrayed me. Larry's pitiful state was proof that karma was catching up with him. I later heard that his fancy tech startup had failed within a year, and my business contacts had shunned him. No investor wanted anything to do with his dubious schemes. Meanwhile, Laura returned to her wealthy father after too many arguments over unpaid bills. The last I heard, she was planning to divorce Larry and was involved with a wealthy older man in Sanremo. That night, Linda and I toasted to their misfortunes over cocktails, laughing about the rumors that Larry was now working in fast food under a fake name. "Karma's a harsh one," Linda said, raising her glass. "Here's to it continuing to bite those who deserve it." I happily clanked my glass against Linda's. "No truer words have been spoken," I agreed. Over the next year and a half, Linda's career took off. More and more high-profile clients wanted her unique tattoo designs and graphic novels. She even got a book deal for her bold memoir about our family struggles, which was creating a buzz before it even hit the shelves. Behind the scenes, Linda trusted me with her growing finances. At her request, I used my years of experience to secure trademarks, negotiate publishing rights, and maximize her profits. I was so proud to see her passions thrive with my help. Linda started appearing in trendy fashion magazines and was featured in popular graphic anthologies. She bought a stylish loft downtown, which served as her business hub and showcased the impressive views she had earned with her talent. To celebrate Linda's success, I planned a small party at her chic new place. It would mark her as a true artistic force and independent businesswoman. Linda welcomed the guests with a bit of nervousness, so I reassured her as I adjusted her blazer. "Just be yourself. Everyone here already loves you." Soon, the loft was filled with Linda's creative friends, including daring writers, top publishers, edgy photographers, and even some famous faces from her celebrity clients, all there to celebrate their favorite artist. My heart swelled with pride hearing such influential people praise my daughter. This was the kind of launch party Larry could only dream of. 3 years ago, Our family name was damaged by selfish actions, but now, thanks to Linda's hard work, we had gained respect and admiration at the highest levels of the art world. Late in the evening, I joined Linda on the balcony, looking out over the city lights. She squeezed my hand. "None of this would have been possible without you, Mom. You believed in me when no one else did, and fought for me. I'll always owe you." I hugged her, holding my champagne flute. "Nonsense, my brave girl. Your success is all because of your talent and vision. I just handled the business side so you could focus on creating." Linda smiled. "Well, I definitely got your business sense and Dad's creative flair," she joked, clinking her glass with mine. "Here's to us, beating the odds and staying strong together." I laughed happily, feeling a deep joy as a mother. My daughter and I had survived tough times of greed and betrayal, and now we were thriving on our own success. As the party went on, I quietly raised my glass to the sky, thinking of her late father. We had indeed created a wonderful legacy, one built on integrity, courage, and hard work, not entitlement or manipulation. This legacy stood as a shining example to others, making the likes of Larry envious for years to come. Over the next 3 years, Linda's career continued to rise brilliantly. Meanwhile, I heard through the grapevine that Larry was struggling with obscurity and growing debt. His extravagant lifestyle hung on until his credit ran out and everything fell apart. Occasionally, I'd hear about Larry in the gossip columns, from Laura's very public affair to him getting fired from a car dealership for missing payments. I took these stories with quiet satisfaction, confident that our paths would never cross again. I had retired from my corporate role to focus on my passions, pursuing artistic hobbies, helping disadvantaged youth, and planning trips around the world. I also decided to move to a more manageable home and found the perfect place in a scenic coastal senior community. Surrounded by mature trees and vibrant gardens, I enjoyed peaceful walks with close friends, finding a new sense of tranquility. Meanwhile, Linda found her match in Riley, a brilliant software developer who loved her spirited nature. I saw true partnership potential in him right away, and my feelings were confirmed when they moved in together. Soon after, Linda excitedly showed me the unique ring Riley had designed, announcing their engagement. "My darling girl," I said, my eyes tearing up with joy, "I'm thrilled you found someone who deserves your big heart." Linda described her dream of a small garden wedding, much like my own vision from decades ago. No extravagant displays, just a deep, lifelong commitment surrounded by loved ones. I held her hand, emotionally moved by how beautifully she was realizing the dreams her father and I once had. Later, as we planned the wedding over tea and biscuits, Linda hesitated, then mentioned a difficult topic. "Mom, about inviting Larry." I quickly waved off the idea. "Let's not ruin your special day by bringing him into it," I said firmly. Linda looked conflicted. "I just can't help but feel sorry for him, you know. He's clearly a mess, but he's still family even if he doesn't deserve it." "I wonder if including him would be the right thing," Linda said, trailing off, unsure. Seeing my daughter's compassion, even for someone who hadn't shown her the same, I patted her hand reassuringly. "You shouldn't have to compromise your kindness. If it eases your mind to show Larry some small mercy, I can handle his presence just this once." Linda exhaled in relief and squeezed my hand, thankful. "You're the best, Mom. I knew you'd understand." Our sentimental moment was suddenly interrupted by my ringing cell phone. I was surprised to see Larry's name flash across the screen. It had been months since his last call, a desperate plea for money. With a grim face, I silenced the call. "Speak of the devil," I remarked. Linda shook her head. "He never stops trying to come back in. But don't worry, Mom. After the wedding, you'll never have to deal with his mess again." I smiled at Linda's protective words. She was right. It was time to stop listening to Larry's self-pitying attempts. I now had everything I needed right here, in a peaceful life surrounded by people who nurtured my spirit. No remnants from a toxic past could change that. I patted Linda's hand firmly. Onwards and upwards, my dear. Now, tell me more about those lovely flower arrangements you've been thinking about. Growing up, it was just me and Mom. Dad left when I was really young, so he's just a faded memory. Mom worked really hard, juggling multiple jobs to keep us going and make sure I could do well in school. Because of her sacrifices, I got a scholarship that paid for college, so I didn't have to deal with the huge debt many people have these days. I studied business management, driven by a mix of ambition and fear of being as poor as we were when I was a kid. After graduating, I moved to the city. It was tough at first, living in a tiny apartment and eating cheap noodles more often than I'd like to admit. But I landed a job at a big company, starting as a junior and quickly moving up the ranks. A few years later, I wasn't just working there, I was running a whole department. It was more than a job to me, it was my domain. I made sure everyone on my team knew they were valued. During training sessions, I tell the newbies, lead with respect. Treat this job like you own it, and soon you'll be leading the team. The team was great, full of good people. When I got promoted to department head, we all went to a local bar to celebrate. It wasn't a fancy place, just a cozy spot with cold beer and lots of laughs. Here's to Maud, the boss lady. Simon, one of my oldest colleagues, raised his glass. Everyone joined in, clinking their glasses together. Thanks, guys, we're all in this together. Here's to kicking more ass and taking names, I shouted, and the team cheered back. That night, amidst all the celebration, I noticed a guy named Austin. He saw me looking and walked over with a confident grin. Couldn't help but notice the celebration. What's the occasion? He asked, leaning against the bar. Just a little career boost, I replied with a smile. I'm the new head of my department now, I said, trying not to sound too boastful. That's impressive. Must be a tough job, he replied, nodding appreciatively. I'm Austin, by the way. Maud. Nice to meet you, Austin. We started talking more seriously than I had planned. It turned out Austin was a financier and knew his way around numbers, just like I knew my way around project plans. Over the next 5 months, our casual dates turned into weekends together. Before long, I was spending more time at his place than my own. He had an amazing apartment with high ceilings, a view that made you want to show it off, and a warmth that my dingy rental couldn't match. One evening, as we looked at the city lights from his balcony, Austin turned to me with a serious look on his usually playful face. He took my hands, and I could feel his nervous energy. Maud, these past months with you have been the best of my life. I know this might seem fast, but when you just know, right? He started, his voice a mix of certainty and hope. I nodded, the cityscape blurring as my heart raced. He pulled out a small box from his jacket and opened it to reveal a ring that sparkled in the light. Will you marry me, Maud? Yes, Austin, absolutely yes, I managed, my voice thick with emotion. And just like that, I was engaged to a man who truly saw me and loved all the parts of me, even the tough ones. The day I was supposed to meet Austin's parents, my stomach was in knots. As Austin drove us up to a sprawling mansion with a driveway longer than my entire apartment block, I realized they were more than well off, they were rich. Stepping out of the car, I felt the weight of the place. The house looked like something out of an old British movie, all brick and ivy with gargoyles staring down like they knew I didn't belong. Austin squeezed my hand as we walked up to the huge oak doors. You'll be fine, Maud, he whispered, but his voice sounded like he was trying to convince himself too. The door swung open, and there stood Mr. and Mrs. Michael. His suit probably cost more than my rent, and her dress was something you'd see in a magazine. The foyer was massive, with a sparkling chandelier overhead. The walls were lined with portraits of stern-looking people with titles like Sir and Lady. Maud, lovely to finally meet you, Mrs. Michael said. I'm Maxime, and this is my wife, Sydney, Mr. Michael said, his voice smooth, but cool with a hint of a practiced English accent. Mrs. Michael gave me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Pleased to meet you both," I managed, trying to keep my voice steady as we moved into the dining room. Austin whispered quick tips about which fork to use, but his words were a jumble in my head. Dinner was served, and it felt like sitting in a freezer. The air was so cold with judgment. Mr. Michael pointed to a portrait of a stern-looking man with a thick beard. "That's Sir Daniel Michael, a direct ancestor from Canada. He came over in the 1500s to establish our family here," he said proudly. "Really impressive," I said, trying to sound enthusiastic, but it was hard to eat when I felt like every move was being critiqued. I reached for what I thought was the salad fork, but the silence that followed told me I'd messed up. I glanced at Austin for help, but before he could whisper anything, Mrs. Michael's voice cut through. "Perhaps things are done differently where you come from, dear," she said, each word sharp and precise. "Sorry, still getting the hang of all this," I mumbled, my cheeks burning hot. Austin tried to smooth things over by jumping into a story about us, but his parents were more interested in watching me struggle with the dessert spoon next. I felt smaller with each course, their stares heavy on my shoulders. After the icy dinner, we all shuffled into the Michaels' expansive living room. The plush carpets and heavy curtains made the room feel even more suffocating than the dining hall. I sunk into one of the ornate chairs, feeling like I was an exhibit in a museum about commoners. Mrs. Michael, perched elegantly on the edge of her seat, leaned forward. "Maud, dear, tell us more about your family. Your upbringing must have been quite different from ours," she said. I hesitated, feeling Austin's tense gaze on me. "Well, it was mostly just me and my mom. My dad left when I was really young, and I don't remember him much. Mom did everything to raise me on her own. She's a nurse." The room fell silent. Mrs. Michael stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the wood floor like a scream. "This is unacceptable," she declared, her voice resonating with disgust. "We are descendants of an ancient English lineage. We have standards, traditions. I cannot and will not allow my only son to marry someone without pedigree or knowledge of her own lineage." Mr. Michael, who had been silently observing, finally spoke. His words were calculated, each one heavy with meaning. "It's essential for us that our family ties are strong and well documented. Maud, can you even name your great-grandparents?" I felt my face heat up with embarrassment. "I only know about my maternal grandparents," I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Michael rolled his eyes, showing his contempt. "This is exactly what we feared," he muttered under his breath. Austin finally intervened, his tone firm yet pleading. "Mom, Dad, please. Maud is kind, hardworking, and she loves me. Isn't that what should matter?" His mother's gaze was steely. "Respect and adherence to our family standards are what matter, John. If Maud is to join this family, she must learn our ways. She needs to respect where she is coming from, even if it is nowhere significant." Their words stung, cutting through the warm feelings from earlier in the evening. But Austin was looking at me, his eyes begging me to just go along with it. I nodded reluctantly, agreeing to their terms. "Fine," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'll learn about your family and your traditions." Mrs. Michael seemed somewhat pleased by my concession. "Good. You'll start by familiarizing yourself with our family tree and understanding who each person in those portraits is. It's not just about names, Maud. It's about respect for our lineage." As they continued talking about their expectations, I felt a part of me shrivel up. The evening had turned from a simple meet and greet into a trial by fire. I had agreed to their demands, yes, but at what cost? As the room filled with discussions of ancestors and noble deeds, I couldn't help but feel alienated from these people, and, oddly enough, from the parts of Austin that were tied so tightly to them. The weeks following that stiff dinner were a whirlwind. I barely had time to catch my breath between working my day job and attending the slew of etiquette and style courses that Mr. and Mrs. Michael insisted I take. My day started with the buzz of an alarm before sunrise and ended long after the sun had set, leaving me feeling like a zombie. "Elbows off the table, Maud," the etiquette instructor gently chided during one of our sessions. "And remember, the soup spoon moves away from you when you scoop." I nodded, attempting to mirror her movements, but my mind was on a million other things like the mountain of work waiting for me back at the office and the never-ending wedding plans. "You're doing well," she reassured me, her voice soothing. "These things take time to become second nature." I gave her a weak smile. "Thanks, it's just a lot, you know." As if on cue, my phone rang. It was Mom. I excused myself and stepped outside to take the call, pressing the phone against my ear while trying to find a quiet corner in the bustling city. "Hi, Mom," I greeted, my voice more tired than I intended. "Maud, darling, how are the wedding preparations going?" she asked, her voice filled with excitement and a hint of concern. I hesitated, not wanting to worry her. "It's all good. Learning a lot. I even picked up how to waltz," I said, trying to keep my tone light. There was a pause, and I knew she wasn't entirely convinced. "You sound exhausted, honey. Are you getting enough rest? You know, all this shouldn't be so hard. You need to take care of yourself." I chuckled weakly. "I'll try, Mom, but there's a lot to juggle right now. Etiquette classes, dance lessons, work, and the wedding planning. Just remember what's important, Maud. It's you and Austin at the end of the day, not all these rules and lessons." Her words were comforting, but as soon as we hung up, the weight of reality settled back on my shoulders. I was caught in a tug-of-war between pleasing Austin's parents and maintaining my sanity. Every day felt like a marathon with no finish line in sight. Back inside, I resumed my training. The instructor's voice was a droning background noise as I practiced the proper way to hold a wine glass, pinch the stem, not the bowl, apparently. In the rare moments of downtime, I'd find myself staring at the ceiling, wondering if all this was worth it: the constant scrutiny, the endless classes, the cold looks from Mr. and Mrs. Michael whenever I slipped up, which was more often than I liked to admit. One evening, as I was about to drift off to sleep, my phone buzzed. It was Austin, his text lighting up the screen. "How was your day? Miss you." I stared at the message, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I wanted to tell him everything, to pour out my frustrations and fears, but I held back. Instead, I typed a simple, "Miss you too. Long day but all good." As I set the phone down, the silence of my apartment felt overwhelming. Was this how it was going to be? Pushing through the exhaustion, smiling through the stress, all for the sake of fitting into a world that seemed increasingly alien to me. The big day had finally arrived. The venue was a flurry of flowers, fancy dresses, and the faces of the city's high society milling about. My stomach was in knots as I tried to keep calm. I stood in my long, flowing white dress, trying to catch my breath. My mom came over and adjusted a curl on my forehead. "Everything will be just fine, Maud," she reassured me with a soft smile. I wanted to believe her, but as soon as the ceremony began, any hope of a peaceful wedding vanished. Austin's parents were in full superiority mode. Mr. Michael greeted guests with an air of boastfulness, while Mrs. Michael quickly pointed out to everyone how they had made everything possible. As the guests settled, I tried to mingle, but Mrs. Michael pulled me aside with a frosty smile. "Maud, dear, make sure our friends are taken care of. Fetch some drinks. There's a good girl," she instructed, gesturing towards a group of elderly gentlemen loudly discussing politics. But I started, only to be cut off by her sharp glance. "No buts. You're practically family now. Show some initiative," she snapped. Reluctantly, I carried trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres between tables, my dress trailing behind me. The weight of the fabric and the task made me feel more like a servant than a bride. I caught glimpses of Austin laughing and chatting, oblivious to my plight. As I passed another round of drinks, I overheard Mrs. Michael's voice rise above the chatter. "Maud will be serving us tonight. It's good practice for her, don't you think?" Her tone was condescending, her eyes scanning the crowd for approval. That was the last straw. I approached her, my hands shaking slightly but my voice firm. "I am not a waitress at my own wedding. There are staff here who are supposed to do this." Mrs. Michael stood up, her expression one of mock surprise. "You should be grateful we allowed such a simple girl into our family. Remember your place, Maud," she hissed, her words like daggers. I felt a flush of anger rise to my cheeks. "This is my wedding, not a performance for your friends," I retorted, my voice louder than intended. The room fell silent, all eyes on us. Austin, catching the tail end of our exchange, stumbled over, a glass of champagne in hand. "What's going on here?" he slurred slightly, his eyes not fully focusing. "Your mother is treating me like a servant at our wedding, Austin. This isn't what today is supposed to be about," I said, frustration boiling over. Austin looked between me and his mother, his expression clouding. "Maud, why are you making a scene? Just do what my mom asks. It's not a big deal." "Not a big deal, Austin. This is our day, and your mom is ruining it," I shot back, disbelief and hurt swirling together. He took a long sip of his champagne before speaking. "Look, Maud, you should be happy. I even chose you. There were plenty of girls better than you, prettier, richer. You're making a fuss over nothing." The words felt like a physical slap. I recoiled, the realization hitting me hard. The man I loved, the man I was about to marry, didn't see us as partners. To him, I was just another accessory, something to fit into the perfect image his parents wanted. As I clutched my bouquet tighter, feeling like I might crumble right there, my mom came over. She took one look at me and wrapped me in her arms, the kind of hug that seemed to hold the world at bay. "Honey, do you love this man? Do you really want to marry him?" she whispered, her voice filled with worry. I shook my head, barely able to speak. "No, Mom, I can't do this. I don't want to." Mom nodded, her jaw set in that determined way I knew so well. She gently took the bouquet from my hands and guided me to a chair, her touch reassuring. Then, with surprising sprightliness, she approached the DJ, asked for the microphone, and turned to face the gathered crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?" Her voice, clear and steady, cut through the murmurs, drawing every eye in the room to her. There was a hush, the kind that precedes a storm. She took a deep breath and turned to face Mr. and Mrs. Michael directly. "I have something important to share about truth and pretense," she began, her gaze unwavering. "I went to the same school as Maxime and Sydney Michael. Back then, they didn't carry an English accent or boast of noble blood. Their families were hardworking folks, just like ours." A murmur rippled through the crowd. "Maxime's father was a mechanic, and Sydney's mother served tables at the local diner." She paused, letting the words sink in. "The portraits, the accents, the surname, they bought them all to craft a past that would hide where they really came from." The room erupted into whispers, guests turning to stare at the Michaels, their faces a mix of shock and disbelief. Mrs. Michael stood up, her face red, the facade of aristocracy melting away. "That's preposterous. But my mom wasn't finished. "To think that you would stand on these fabrications and look down upon my daughter, judge her worthiness based on a lie. Maud is worth 1,000 of your false titles. She is real, something you've long forgotten how to be." The guests were now openly murmuring, their looks of fascination turning to disdain as they gazed at the Michaels. Mr. Michael tried to speak, his accent slipping into something less refined and more desperate. "We did what we thought was best." "For whom?" My mom cut him off, her voice fierce. "For your son? For society? Or just for your own shallow pride?" The confrontation had drawn everyone's attention, and now the room was buzzing, the atmosphere charged with tension and revelations. The Michaels seemed to shrink, their grandeur dissolving into the air, leaving nothing but the stark, plain truth of their origins. Austin's face twisted with a mix of shock and anger. He stormed up to me, his voice barely a hiss as he leaned close. You've ruined everything, Maud. You've disgraced my family. And now you're questioning if I want to marry you after this spectacle. His words stung, but before I could respond, he grabbed my arm, pulling me slightly closer. I'll teach you how to be a good wife, one who knows her place and obeys. His threat hung in the air, heavy and chilling. I pulled my arm back with all my might, stepping away from him. The room was dead silent now, everyone's eyes on us. This was the man I had intended to marry. This was the family I was about to join. No, this couldn't be my life. I took a deep breath, my mother's earlier strength flowing through me. There will be no wedding, I announced loudly, making sure every guest heard. I regret that I ever considered marrying someone who truly matches the arrogance and deceit of his parents. Murmurs filled the room, some of shock, others of support. Austin stood there, mouth agape, as if trying to catch the words and stuff them back into my mouth. My mother came to my side, her presence a comforting shield against the chaos. Together, we walked through the crowd, our heads held high. In the weeks that followed, news of the Michaels' disgrace spread through the city. Their fabricated lineage and high society standing crumbled like a house of cards in a breeze. People who once revered them now crossed the street to avoid their shame. They sold their mansion and moved away, seeking a fresh start where their past wouldn't haunt them. As for Austin, I realized I was free from a life of lies and manipulation. I began to find myself again, living a life where I didn't have to pretend or fit into someone else's mold. My mom and I grew closer, and I discovered that real happiness comes from being true to yourself. I heard bits and pieces, rumors of Austin's downward spiral, of nights spent at bars trying to drink away the scandal. I didn't know if they were true, and frankly, I didn't care. He had shown his true colors, and they were too dark and twisted for me to ever want to look back. "Thank you, Mom," I said to her one evening as we sat in our modest living room, a stark contrast to the opulent falsity I had almost married into. "For everything, for being there, for standing up for me, for helping me see the truth before it was too late." She took my hand, squeezing it gently. "I'll always be here, Maud. You're my daughter, and I raised you to be strong and true. No man, no family can ever make you less than what you are." We sat there, the TV chattering in the background, a normalcy that felt refreshing. I had lost a fiancé but gained back my life, my self-respect, and more importantly, my future. After the whole wedding debacle, going back to work felt like walking into a sanctuary. My colleagues who had heard about the chaos were nothing short of supportive. "Maud, you dodged a bullet, girl," Simon said as soon as I walked into the office. He was leaning against my desk, a steaming cup of coffee in his hand, which he handed to me as a peace offering or maybe a welcome back gift. "Thanks, Simon. Feels good to be back," I replied, taking the coffee and savoring the familiar bitter warmth. And yeah, that bullet was more like a cannonball. "Anyone who makes you serve guests at your own wedding is no husband material. You deserve way better, hun," Sabrina chimed in from her cubicle across the way. I smiled, grateful for the camaraderie. "I think so too. It's nice to be back where I'm appreciated for what I do, not for the family I might have married into." As the days turned into weeks, the support from my team didn't waver. It was during this healing time that I met Andrew. He was a friend of a friend, nothing fancy about his background, just a genuine guy with a quick smile and an easygoing attitude that was infectious. We met at a small get-together, just a few friends hanging out on a Saturday afternoon. He was there, laughing at something silly when I walked in. "Hey, you must be Maud," he said, standing up to greet me. "I've heard a lot about you. All good things, I promise." "Thanks, Andrew. I hope they didn't embellish too much," I replied, trying to match his easy demeanor. We hit it off instantly. His family was the polar opposite of the Michaels. The first time I met Andrew's parents, and they welcomed me with warm hugs and genuine smiles. "Maud, we're just glad Andrew found someone who makes him so happy," his mom said, pulling me into a hug as soon as I stepped through their front door. It was refreshing, the simplicity of it all. No pretenses, no demands, just mutual respect and acceptance. Andrew and I weren't rushing anything. We were taking our time getting to know each other beyond the surface level. We enjoyed long walks, quiet dinners, and endless conversations about our dreams and goals. I found myself relaxing in his company, appreciating the normalcy and ease that marked our growing relationship. It was a stark contrast to the pressure and expectations I had faced with Austin and his family. Back at work, things were also looking up. My colleagues continued to be supportive, and the office felt like a second home. One day, my boss called me into his office. "Maud, I just want to say we've all noticed how you've handled everything. It's not been easy, but you've managed to keep your performance top-notch." I nodded, unsure where this was leading. "We think it's time for another promotion. You've proven you can handle just about anything, and your leadership has never wavered." Leaving his office, I felt a surge of pride. With a new relationship developing, a career on the rise, and the respect of those I cared about, I was finally in a place where I felt I belonged. It was a complete turnaround from the chaos and heartbreak I had experienced with Austin and his family. Andrew's family continued to welcome me with open arms. Every visit to their home was filled with laughter and warmth. His parents would share stories from Andrew's childhood, and we would all sit around the kitchen table, enjoying simple, hearty meals. I felt like I was part of their family, and the feeling was mutual. They appreciated me for who I was, not for some image or status. At work, I took on new challenges and responsibilities with confidence. My team respected my leadership, and we achieved our goals together. The promotion brought new opportunities, and I embraced them, knowing that I had the support of my colleagues and superiors. As the months went by, Andrew and I grew closer. We celebrated our small milestones, like the first time he met my mom and the first holiday we spent together. Each step forward felt natural and right. There was no rush, no pressure, just a steady building of a strong, loving relationship. One evening, after a particularly good day at work, Andrew and I were sitting on his couch, watching a movie. He turned to me and said, "Maud, I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want you in it." I smiled, feeling the truth of his words. "Me too, Andrew, me too." It was in that moment that I realized I had found what I was looking for, not just in a partner, but in life. I had a loving relationship, a fulfilling career, and the support of people who truly cared about me. I had found my place, and it felt like home. Families often have conflicts or financial problems, but there are also families who manage to stick together and make it through everyday life. It's pretty clear which one is happier, don't you think? My name is Rachel. I've been called an oddball since I was a child. I don't know what's different about me. I just know people say I'm different. Being called different isn't the problem. The real issue is being ignored by my own parents. This led to a lonely childhood for me. I've always been sensitive to people's emotions and can somehow understand what they're thinking. I don't know why I can do this. It's not like I can always see or feel it, but it's as natural to me as moving my hand or breathing. I found it strange and couldn't understand why others couldn't do the same. There was a time when I felt a bad vibe from a colleague my father brought home from work. I warned my mother to be careful with that person, but she didn't listen. Later on, that colleague tricked my father into signing a contract as a guarantor for a loan. Although my mother didn't take my advice, when my father stepped away from the table with his colleague, I told him, "Dad, something is telling me that the word joint is dangerous. I don't know what joint means, but please be careful." So my father hesitated and refused to sign as a joint guarantor. Thanks to that, when my colleague went bankrupt and couldn't repay the debt, my father was able to avoid taking on all the debt. Another day, when I was shopping with my mother, I felt a wave of discomfort coming from behind us. When I turned around, I felt this bad feeling coming from a man wearing sunglasses and a hat. I said, "Mom, let's take that side street." I grabbed my mother's hand and moved to the side street. My mother was confused and asked what was wrong, but just as we moved, we heard someone shout, "Thief," from the street we had been on. The man with the bad vibe had snatched a woman's purse and ran off. The woman fell and got hurt badly. If we hadn't moved to the side street, the man's target would have been my mother. Things like this happened often, and people started to think I was strange and mysterious. My parents began to avoid me, and I felt lonely and isolated. What seemed normal to me was not normal to others. I started keeping my thoughts to myself. I stopped expressing my feelings because I knew normal people don't feel what I feel. If I didn't say anything, they wouldn't think I was weird. I would just be like a normal kid. I have a sister, Julie, who's 4 years younger than me. Unlike me, Julie is a regular kid. As the years went by, I became more withdrawn, but Julie just got cuter and more charming. It was clear who everyone preferred. Our parents started to favor Julie over me. They would say, "Julie is such a lovely girl, but Rachel seems to be a bit on the darker side." They noticed I had become less odd lately, but still thought I was different. What they called odd was me not talking about things only I could sense. It was my way of dealing with the world. I was tired of how this ability of mine was torturing me, so I tried hard to suppress it. I wondered if my attempts to hide myself and appear normal were making me seem abnormal, or if once labeled as the odd kid, that image just couldn't be erased. I grew up without much love from my parents. On the other hand, Julie received all the love, including what should have been mine. Julie, who was spoiled and pampered, sensed our parents being cold and distant toward me. She started to look down on me. "I don't like being around you. Your gloominess rubs off on me. I'm so cute, but your loner image brings me down." Julie started to insult me whenever she got the chance. Our parents lightly scolded Julie, but they never seriously tried to correct her. When I was in 8th grade and Julie was in 5th grade, she was scouted by a talent agency on the street. I knew it. It's because I'm cute. They said I could even appear on TV, Julie said, pleased with herself. She started dreaming big, and our parents didn't seem entirely against it. "You should calm down and think carefully." I sensed something shady about this. I spoke up, expressing the intuition that I had long suppressed because I didn't want Julie to get into trouble. Julie, who didn't know about my unique ability, said, "What's your problem? Are you just jealous because you're not cute and nobody approached you? Don't say weird things and stop interfering with me." She seemed furious. Even my parents, who knew about my ability, either forgot about it or were too excited about Julie standing on the glamorous stage. They sided with Julie and criticized me. After that, I resolved to remain silent again. I told myself that there was nothing good in saying unnecessary things. One day, a student teacher came to my junior high school. He was a male college student who graduated from the school and wanted to be a physical education teacher. As he shared his dreams about education and gave a strong greeting, the teacher and students, especially the female students, were charmed. When he responded cheerfully to the girls' excited cheers, I sensed a dark aura from him. I had always vowed to hide my unique abilities, but seeing my classmates potentially in danger, I decided to break my self-imposed rule. I chose a teacher who seemed understanding and talked to her. "I know this is sudden, but please believe me and help me," I said. The teacher was puzzled by my sudden request, but agreed to stake out a certain location after school, just as I asked. I didn't tell the teacher the details. I had no reason to think she would believe me, but the fact that she agreed to help without any explanation made me think she wasn't an ordinary person either. The next day, the school was in an uproar. The male student teacher was arrested for violating a public nuisance prevention ordinance. The location where the teacher staked out was near the girls' restroom. Within 10 minutes of starting the stakeout, the student teacher appeared, entered the girls' restroom, and installed a video camera. The teacher caught him in the act. Thanks to that, the female students were saved from being secretly filmed, and their dignity was protected. Meanwhile, my sister, who had joined the talent agency, was proudly telling everyone about it. But there were no real lessons or auditions. She only had to pay expensive membership and lesson fees. Then, suddenly, the agency closed down, leaving an empty shell. In short, my sister was scammed. She cried and screamed, directing her anger at me. "It's all because you said weird things. My future is ruined, and it's all your fault." It didn't make any sense, but my sister seemed to truly believe it. Maybe that's the only way she could handle it. For me, it was a disaster and a nuisance. Our parents didn't say such unreasonable things, but their attitude became more distant toward me and more supportive of my sister. I ended up feeling lonely again, as the odd one out. I was happy that I could help everyone at school, but I was terrified that my actions would corner me. That's when I received a call from the teacher who had listened to my story, asking me to come to the staff room. Worried that I would be labeled as strange again, I opened the door to the teacher's staff room. "You knew something like that was going to happen, didn't you?" The teacher asked me in a low voice, without any preamble. Thinking there was no point in pretending, I gathered my courage and told the teacher about my mysterious power. "I thought so. I know there are very few people like you," the teacher said. For the first time, someone showed understanding for my situation. The teacher said they knew someone with a power like mine, and that's why they could understand. Actually, that person is my aunt, and I've been listening to her stories for a long time. "You must be worried about a lot of things because of your power. Maybe getting advice from someone who's been in your shoes will help clear your mind." Saying that, the teacher introduced me to the person. The person looked at me with kind eyes and said, "It's natural to be worried, but you don't need to suffer." I was drawn to their gentle yet deep eyes that seemed to see through everything. The person's name was Hannah, and she had the same kind of power as me since she was a child. She had experienced a lot of struggles and hiding herself throughout her life. The stories from my senior who had gone through the same experiences helped me release my worries and doubts. From this day on, my interactions with Hannah began. I called Hannah my mentor, but she just gave a wry smile and said, "Please don't." Thanks to Hannah, or rather my mentor, I changed. I had been living my life quietly, trying to stay unnoticed, but as my awareness grew, I gradually began to live a normal life as an ordinary girl. However, since the incident with the talent agency, I haven't been able to reconcile with my sister. If anything, it feels like we're drifting apart. It's become normal for her not to talk to me, and when she does, it's just to complain or insult me for no reason. I often have no idea what triggers her mood switches. My power couldn't predict my sister's emotional changes either. "Just because you got into college doesn't mean you're all that. It's not even that great of a school, and you're so happy-go-lucky," she would say. My sister, who had hoped to get into her top choice high school, ended up at her second choice school. Because of that, she got mad when I got into my first choice college. It's not like I bragged to her, she just dissed me because of her own frustrations. Our parents only tried to appease my upset sister and kept their distance from me, as if telling me to stay away from her. It seemed that my sister didn't like the fact that I had become brighter since meeting my mentor. To my sister, I had to be a dark and gloomy girl who was inferior to her. But my sister is really smart. It was surprising that she failed her high school entrance exams. Of course, she was filled with frustration and poured all of that into studying at her new high school. As a result, she was at the top of her class for all 4 years and got accepted into a prestigious national university on her first try. I got into the most difficult university. "Your college doesn't even come close to mine," she boasted. I lightly responded with, "That's true," to my satisfied sister because I knew nothing good would come from getting too involved with her. However, my sister thought that my light reaction was belittling her accomplishments and unleashed a barrage of verbal abuse at me. Both my parents were at their wits' end with my sister, who couldn't be calmed down once she lost her temper. All they could do was watch nervously. They blamed me for causing the trouble and eventually ended up calling me a troublemaker. I wanted to argue back about who the real problem child was, but I always swallowed my words to avoid complicating things further. Setting aside my sister's issues, as I approached college graduation, I had to seriously confront my own career path. I was no longer as introverted as I used to be. I still struggled with socializing and had little confidence in building good relationships with others. My ability allowed me to detect people's negative emotions. While I could sense positive emotions too, it seemed people were more prone to negative ones, which made detecting such negativity painful for me. Throughout my school life, I was tormented by these swirling negative emotions and had come close to losing faith in people. Could someone like me really manage to work at a company? I decided to consult my mentor about this dilemma. I wanted to learn how she had overcome similar issues, as I was sure she had faced them as well. I have experienced the same worries as you. Maybe you should consider doing the kind of work I do, she suggested. My mentor used to work as a fortune teller and a counselor, helping people resolve their problems. She could use her abilities to their fullest extent and contribute to the world and people around her. Also, she was able to work freelance, which meant she didn't have to belong to any organization. This way, there were fewer chances of getting entangled in human relationships or being affected by other people's emotions. It's the perfect job for people like us, she said. Encouraged by my mentor, I decided to pursue the same line of work. She taught me everything from how to do the job to how to acquire clients. Nowadays, thanks to the internet, it's possible to work from home without any issues. When I told my parents and sister that I would not seek employment after graduation and work from home instead, they responded, "What's that? What kind of job is that? Seems so dumb. You'll be home all the time. At least make sure to do the housework. Can you even make a living doing that? How will you cover living expenses? Well, as long as you contribute to the household, do whatever you want." While I expected such a response from my parents, it made me feel a little lonely that they didn't support me more. I felt sad thinking about their demands for housework and money. My mood darkened, and so my life working from home began. At first, I didn't have any job requests and struggled day by day. But with my mentor's help, I gradually got the hang of it and started to make a living. For about a year, I couldn't contribute financially to the household, so I focused on doing the housework. My dad seemed unsatisfied, but my mom was relieved and kept him in check. After about a year, when I finally started contributing financially, my dad mocked me by saying, "Oh, finally, you're able to earn some pocket change, huh?" But I could tell he was actually quite satisfied with the money. However, even though I was contributing, the amount of housework I had to do didn't decrease, and our lives remained unchanged. Then, after another 3 years, my sister graduated from college and secured a job at a foreign company. Unlike you, I'm an elite. You're just unemployed, living at the bottom of the barrel. It's so depressing to have you as a sister, she would say. My sister, who had successfully landed a job, started to belittle me for working from home. "What are you even doing working from home? That's just like playing. You're nothing more than a parasite living at home." At times, she'd say, "It's really weird not to work outside. I'm working hard, earning everyone's respect, and now I've been promoted to team leader. My pay is going to increase, and I'm probably earning about 5 times more than you. There's no way a homebody like you can earn that much." My sister, who was promoted to team leader after only a year and a half at the company, kept one-upping me and looking down on me. She boasted about her good salary, but hardly contributed any money to the household and didn't help with the chores at all. Laundry, cleaning, preparing meals, everything was dumped onto Mom and me. When I say Mom and me, Mom mostly left it to me, so I was basically doing everything. Whenever I said to her, "Julie, you should take care of yourself a little. You shouldn't just spend all your money on fun. You should contribute to the household too," she just dismissed me, saying, "You, the unemployed, can handle the chores. I'm saving my money for my future." Our parents also just let her do what she pleased for some inexplicable reason of, "It's Julie, it can't be helped." I was used to my current lifestyle, and it was a comfortable environment for me to work, so I wanted to keep it that way. But I was starting to consider how to take care of myself. Then came the bombshell announcement from my sister. Without any prior warning, both our parents and I were taken aback as she continued, "He's a real elite with an annual income." She sneered at me and added, "Marriage is just a pipe dream for someone unemployed like you, isn't it?" She said she would bring her boyfriend over the next Sunday. With the rapid succession of sudden developments, Sunday came, and we were still reeling. The man my sister brought along looked like a successful young man, impeccably dressed in a sharp suit. "Nice to meet you. My name is Jack," he said. "I would like to ask for your permission to marry Julie," Jack said, greeting us properly and showing good manners. "Isn't he wonderful? Just as I said, I'm going to be so happy with this man," Julie gushed. "So Jack, what do you do for a living?" Dad managed to ask, clearly impressed by Jack's presence. "Yes, I'm currently training at a company that my father knows," Jack replied. We were puzzled by the word training, and then Julie said gleefully, "His father is the president. He's training now to take over the presidency in the future." My sister seemed over the moon about becoming a future president's wife. Afterward, we had various conversations, and Jack left stylishly. There were a few things that made me raise an eyebrow during the conversation, but my parents were thrilled with the high-status man. However, I felt an inexplicable dark shadow from that seemingly refreshing and good-natured man, Jack. It was something only I could sense, so I didn't know how to explain it. I could no longer remain silent, fearing that marrying a man with hidden issues would make my sister unhappy. "Julie, you've only been dating him for less than 4 months. You might want to understand him a little more before deciding to get married," I cautioned, driven by a strong gut feeling. "Sis, he's an elite and a future CEO. You won't find anyone better than him." "Oh, I see, you're jealous, aren't you? You're bitter because you're comparing your life to my happy one." "Poor jobless sis," she retorted. Even our parents got angry at me for interfering with Julie's happiness. "You're just unemployed, so at the very least, stop interfering with your sister's happiness," they said. It was clear that our parents were hoping to secure a comfortable old age by marrying Julie off to a wealthy man. Frustrated by my inability to effectively communicate my concern about the dark shadow I sensed looming over Julie, my head was spinning. In the meantime, the two got engaged, and a meeting between both families took place. Jack's parents, like him, carried an air of freshness about them, but I felt the same ominous cloud hidden behind them. However, I was unable to convey this danger to my overjoyed sister and parents. Before I knew it, the day of the wedding had arrived. The CEO of our company is attending today's reception. Can you comprehend how much I'm appreciated and anticipated in my company? I guess it's a kind of honor that a shut-in like you wouldn't understand, my sister said gleefully before leaving the house. She always included some derogatory words directed at me. At the wedding ceremony held at a hotel, the couple who pledged eternal love to each other entered the reception hall. Watching my sister, who was beaming with joy, I worried about how long this happiness would last. As my sister mentioned, the CEO made a keynote speech, full of praise for her, which delighted her. Once the speeches were over, food and drinks were served to each table. There were all sorts of delicious-looking dishes, but I started to feel a sense of discomfort. Gradually, I realized that no dishes were being served in front of me. At first, I thought my meal was just late, but other tables were already being served drinks, appetizers, and so on, one after another. Clearly, something was off. Nothing was being delivered to me. People at the same table began to notice this oddity and started whispering among themselves. At that moment, my sister came over to me and whispered into my ear with laughter in her voice. "We didn't prepare free meals for the unemployed. After all, it's such a waste to serve such food to a jobless person. You should just eat potato chips at home. Just leave your gift money and go home." This outrageous remark was spoken loudly in my ear, and my ears rang. Jack, sitting at the groom's table, was grinning and nodding. Even our parents, who at first seemed surprised, said, "Well, it's true, Rachel is jobless after all." I was first taken aback, then a wave of anger surged up within me. "I never thought you'd stoop this low, sis. Mom and Dad, this is unacceptable. How could you accept such rudeness?" My parents just scowled at me, never bothering to reprimand my sister. "Fine, I get it. I'm leaving, but don't come crying to me later," I said. "You sound like a sore loser," she shot back. Amidst the chaos of this unbelievable turn of events, a man suddenly stood up. "Sorry to interrupt. I'm the groom's brother, Larry. My brother and parents are trash, but it seems the bride is even worse." "I can't take it anymore," said the man who introduced himself as Larry. He continued, "Dad, your company went bankrupt 5 months ago, didn't it? Pretending to still be a CEO is just a scheme to mooch off the bride and her family. Jack will never become a CEO. He's planning to leech off his wife while pretending otherwise. He's unemployed now." Larry's words caused a commotion among the guests, but my sister was the most heated. "What do you mean you lied to me? What do you mean unemployed?" she demanded, her face turning from red to blue, her eyes welling up with tears. Our parents, their assumptions proven wrong, began to yell and curse. The anguished cries of my family echoed throughout the venue. The groom and his parents remained silent, looking sulky. Before the ceremony, I had received a confession and apology from Larry and asked him to speak his mind without reservation if something happened during the reception. As my sister was berating Jack with a wrathful face, another man couldn't take it anymore and stood up. It was the president of my sister's company. "Enough already. This is embarrassing. You have no right to criticize the groom. What do you think about your terrible attitude towards your own sister?" The president's angry voice made my sister's face contort in fear. "For one, I didn't attend your wedding for your sake. I wouldn't have come if you weren't the sister of Rachel." Suddenly, my name was mentioned by the president, and my sister's eyes widened in surprise. "Huh? Who are you talking about?" "Rachel is a goddess to many of us business owners, rescuing countless companies from the brink of collapse," he continued. "In fact, with the guidance of my mentor, I had been working as an advisor for corporate revitalization and growth. Starting with fortune-telling and life consultation, I used my abilities to show companies the path they should take. All my advice was spot on, and the companies that sought my help experienced a rapid resurgence in business, achieving a V-shaped recovery. As a result, I had earned titles like teacher and goddess. My sister's company had also consulted with me 5 months ago, and thanks to my advice, it had been reborn as a stronger enterprise. The president, grateful for my assistance, attended the wedding today as well. I had no idea. "You're not just a basement-dwelling, unemployed nobody, are you?" my sister said, finally realizing the truth. Thanks to my thriving career, her assumptions had been shattered. "I now earn several times what you do. Despite contributing significantly to the household income, our parents never seemed to care about me. They thought that money was from Julie." "Oh, we thought July provided that money," they said, misunderstanding the situation. There was no way Julie would have been contributing money to the house. The wedding reception turned into a chaotic scene and was called off. Naturally, all the guests were fully refunded their wedding gifts. I've already signed a contract for an apartment under my name. I can't afford it on my own, especially now that he's unemployed," my sister sobbed. Jack retorted, "You're the one who signed the contract. I don't know anything about that." The wedding was a complete disaster, resulting from my sister's malice towards others. She may argue there were reasons for her behavior, but they didn't hold up. Afterward, Julie divorced Jack and claimed alimony. Since Jack was jobless and his parents didn't have much, she couldn't receive much alimony. She barely managed to pay for the wedding venue, let alone the apartment she had contracted. The place that was supposed to be their love nest was never occupied and was canceled. However, the debt didn't simply vanish, and Julie found herself heavily burdened by loans. Moreover, her outrageous behavior at the wedding quickly became known among her colleagues, leading to a rapid decline in her reputation. The CEO had no choice but to demote her. With no place left in the company and having lost her pride as an elite, Julie wanted to quit and run away, but she had to bear the embarrassment for the sake of loan repayment. She continued with a trivial job in a hardly noticeable basement storage room. Jack and his parents, who had failed in their plan to leech off Julie, were now scraping by with occasional day labor. Naturally, Jack's elder brother, Gary, had cut off all ties with his parents and brother. The parents quickly gave up on Julie when she hit rock bottom and tried to cozy up to me instead. To them, I said, "I've had enough of being manipulated by you. I'm cutting ties. Goodbye forever." I declared this and moved out to start a new life in a newly rented apartment. They took in the fallen Julie, who was struggling to make ends meet. Julie's salary was drastically reduced, and she couldn't possibly contribute to the household expenses, of course. I stopped the money I was contributing to the house as well. Without my financial help and unable to lower their standard of living, our parents quickly became exhausted and struggled every day to make ends meet. They were panting and stressed, trying to maintain the lifestyle they had grown used to, but without the necessary income, it became a daily challenge. On the other hand, my work was thriving. I was able to guide many companies and individuals in the right direction, using my abilities to help them succeed. My reputation grew, and more clients sought my advice. This success brought me a sense of fulfillment and financial stability. It felt good to finally be appreciated for my skills and to see the positive impact I was making on others' lives. After the wedding incident, I started dating Larry. He had been so honest and brave during that chaotic time, and we grew close. He recently proposed to me, and I accepted. If everything goes well, marriage could be in our future. Larry is a man of pure heart, with no dark shadows lurking within him. Unlike the people my sister had surrounded herself with, Larry was genuine and kind. I'm looking forward to building a happy life with Larry. Together, we dream of a future filled with love, mutual respect, and understanding. With him by my side, I feel a sense of hope and excitement for what lies ahead. We've talked about our plans, our dreams, and how we want to support each other in everything we do. As I reflect on everything that has happened, I feel a mix of emotions. I am relieved to have cut ties with my parents and sister, who never appreciated me. I am proud of the person I have become, despite the challenges I faced, and I'm grateful for Larry, who has brought light and love into my life. Looking forward, I see a bright future. I am excited about the possibility of marriage with Larry and the life we will build together. With him, I know I will never have to hide who I am or feel unappreciated. Our love and partnership are based on honesty and mutual support, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for us. I don't think marriage should be about money, but some people really care about wealth more than anything else. My sister-in-law, Laura, is one of those people. I never thought greed would become such a big issue over an inheritance after my brother, a well-respected surgeon, died. I'm Julia Roberts. I manage a jewelry store, and I'm happy being single at 35. However, I've been thinking about marriage since my boyfriend recently proposed. Our families are getting together tomorrow to celebrate our engagement, but I can feel tension brewing. My older brother Kyle, who is a well-known surgeon in Paris, has always looked out for me and taught me a lot because he's much older. He jokes about checking out my boyfriend as if he were my dad, which makes me laugh. But I can tell he's a bit worried. Kyle's marriage to Laura, a very beautiful woman with questionable morals, really shows the conflict between looks and true character. Despite their glamorous life, Laura's love for luxury puts a strain on our family relationships. Her need for expensive things often comes before her promises, leaving us let down and upset. At first, we overlooked Laura's behavior, thinking it was because of the pressure to look good. But as she started skipping more family events, our patience started to wear thin. Her decision to cancel on tomorrow's gathering at the last minute for tea at a fancy hotel is a perfect example of her selfishness. While we wouldn't mind her not being there, it's her lack of thought for others that really bothers me. I'm tired of always bending over backward to accommodate her every whim. I tried to talk to my brother about it, but his weakness for Laura stops any serious conversation. He just apologized for the inconvenience and tried to reassure me. He promised he would talk to her about her actions. "I'll be there tomorrow," he assured me, convincing me to drop the issue for now. What bothers me the most isn't just Laura's selfishness, but also how she gets my busy brother to say sorry for her and do her tasks, even though she doesn't work and could handle them herself. Despite being at home full-time, Laura doesn't do housework. She hires cleaners and prefers to eat out. Her days are filled with shopping for brand-name items, leaving little time for real responsibilities. The next day, our family meeting went well, and my boyfriend won everyone over. It was a nice gathering, although it didn't last long. That evening, just as I was relaxing, Laura called out of the blue and started yelling. She demanded scones and macarons and scolded me for neglecting her. Confused, I tried to talk to her calmly, but she kept shouting. Despite my efforts to explain, Laura kept demanding, paying no attention to reason. She even demanded a souvenir from the hotel and had so many other unreasonable expectations that left me both puzzled and tired. What should have been a happy evening ended with me feeling exhausted and annoyed because of Laura's unreasonable demands and outbursts. I wondered how Kyle managed to find peace in his daily life with Laura's constant mood swings. What made him marry her in the first place? While her beauty was obvious, her self-centered nature was off-putting. I thought maybe she was spoiled because of her looks. I was worried for Kyle, but I knew I shouldn't interfere with his marriage. It was his choice, after all, and he had always respected my choices too. The next day at the jewelry store where I work, I saw Laura outside, walking arm in arm with a man around her age, probably in his late 30s. They were chatting comfortably as they came into the store. I paused before going over to them. Laura acted like nothing was wrong when she saw me, which made me even more uncomfortable. When I asked about the man with her, Laura said he was just an old friend from her modeling days. Still, seeing them together, especially since she's married, made me feel uneasy. As Laura looked at the jewelry, she boldly asked if she could get an employee discount, seemingly unaware that this was inappropriate. I calmly told her we don't offer such discounts. Honestly, I didn't like the idea of her friend buying things for her, and she seemed slightly annoyed when I told her the discount wasn't available. Laura picked out some items and left, leaving the man to pay the bill. This made me wonder about their relationship. That evening, I decided to talk to Kyle about what I saw, but when I called him, he seemed really down. "Kyle, what's wrong?" I asked, noticing he was upset. I had my suspicions about Laura, but I didn't mention them. When I tried to talk about my upcoming wedding, Kyle seemed distracted by his own thoughts. He talked about saving for our wedding next year and invited me over, but didn't say much about Laura. His uncertainty made me curious. Although I tried to discuss the wedding details, Kyle was non-committal and ended the call abruptly, asking me to meet at our parents' house without explaining why. Maybe he wasn't feeling well. Kyle, a dedicated surgeon, often puts other people's needs before his own health, and this tendency of his to ignore his own health worries me, despite his jokes about the risks of his job. I couldn't stop thinking that his non-stop work schedule was wearing him down. I doubted that Laura, with her self-centered attitude, could give him the support he needed. Kyle sent an email later outlining the plan for a gathering at our parents' house. When I got there, I was shocked to see how pale and worn out he looked, worse than ever before. I asked him how he was, but he just gave me vague answers about being busy with work. Finally, I gathered the courage to talk about Laura's recent actions. I told him about her visit to my store with a young man and wondered aloud if she was deceiving him again. Laura's past actions had always worried me, and I couldn't overlook them any longer. I've been too busy with work to pay much attention to her, my brother confessed. Our parents were upset by her absence at the gathering, which gave me a chance to bring up my concerns. When I asked Kyle about Laura's absence, he said solemnly, "Laura isn't here today, which is why I asked you all to come. I have a favor to ask." With a serious look, Kyle shared some shocking news. Despite our shock, he stood firm, leaving us stunned. 5 months later, tragedy struck as my brother died from stomach cancer, a result of constant stress and overwork. It was a harsh truth to face. Despite his commitment to saving others, he had neglected his own health. He had started to see signs and went through tough tests that confirmed his illness. We wished he had told us sooner. Tears flowed at his funeral, surrounded by a deep feeling of loss. I remembered all the ways Kyle had supported me during my early challenges. His death before he even turned 20 left us overwhelmed with grief. Yet during our mourning, Laura's actions were glaringly obvious. She wore a flashy necklace to the funeral, a gift from another man, showing no respect for the solemn occasion. Her insensitive behavior was unbearable. Overcome with anger, I confronted her. "Why are you wearing that?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Don't you realize how much my brother cared for you?" Laura just smiled, seemingly untouched by the seriousness of the situation. "I know," she replied carelessly. "It's just how the world works. If you're so unhappy, why did you marry me?" Her harsh words really hurt, and I had to hold back my anger in front of my brother, our parents, and the others. It was clear that Laura didn't care about my brother's memory at all. Her selfish behavior and her careless talk about their marriage and waiting for her inheritance made me furious. Before I knew it, I almost slapped her, but a man by her side caught my hand. He then introduced himself as a nurse who had worked with Kyle and was here to look after me at Kyle's request. I was confused and trying to understand everything going on. Despite the sadness of the funeral, hearing the laughter of the nurses and doctors, who were Kyle's colleagues, brought me a moment of comfort amidst the chaos. I turned to the nurse who had stopped me during the laughter for some clarity. His reply was straightforward. "Did the doctor leave any inheritance behind? Your family should know." His words hit home. I knew very well that my brother hadn't left any inheritance. But Laura, not knowing this, became hysterical. She started accusing us of plotting against her to take the money for ourselves. She was sure she would soon get a large sum of money. As Laura's accusations grew louder, the nurse's amusement turned into full laughter. Seeing things getting out of hand, my dad stepped in, calm but assertive. "Do you really not know?" he asked her. Eager for answers, Laura demanded to know what was going on. I obliged, sharing the details of my brother's financial arrangements during his lifetime. He had set aside €20 million specifically for my wedding and had other generous gifts planned as well. As this reality dawned on Laura, her expression changed dramatically from shock to pale disbelief. My brother, although highly respected for his medical expertise, was known for his lavish spending habits. He indulged in extravagant parties, exclusive dinners, and luxurious accommodations as a way to relieve the stress from his demanding career and family responsibilities. Despite his intent to share these joys with Laura, she was notably absent during both his challenging and celebratory moments. It was not Laura who stood by him during tough times. Instead, it was his colleagues and friends, the very people who were now gathered to pay their respects, who supported him. The nurses, whose laughter had earlier filled the room, began to share poignant memories of my brother's acts of kindness and generosity. They recounted how, despite his hectic schedule, he always made time to look after them, hosting gatherings that left a lasting impression. Their stories deepened their admiration for him, inspiring them to strive harder in their own careers. As they spoke, they revealed another significant act of kindness from my brother: the donation of the remainder of his estate to the hospital. Representatives from the hospital were present and expressed their gratitude for his contribution, which would help alleviate their annual struggles with research funding and improve future medical care. Witnessing the extent of my brother's compassion towards others, I couldn't help but feel a pang of disappointment towards Laura. While he had impacted so many lives in such positive ways, Laura, who should have been his closest companion, displayed nothing but selfishness and greed. Months later, Laura contacted me, her tone as demanding as ever, eager to secure what she believed was her rightful inheritance. However, her careless management of the estate affairs revealed a shocking truth. Despite my brother's considerable earnings, his assets were nearly depleted. In her pursuit of the mansion and other properties, Laura had overlooked the fact that Kyle had accumulated significant debts. This oversight left her with only a fraction of what she had anticipated. Her pleas for help were met with no sympathy, as her earlier behavior had alienated those who might have otherwise been inclined to assist her. I made it clear to Laura that with Kyle's passing, the family ties that loosely bound us had effectively dissolved. Her behavior throughout had spoken louder than any words could, revealing her true motives despite her claims of affection for my brother. "I could potentially help you out of this trouble," I told her, "but how can you expect that after you've been so blatantly selfish?" My voice was tinged with disbelief and disappointment as I spoke. Laura's response was fraught with impatience, a stark contrast to the composed facade she usually maintained. She was grappling with the new and harsh reality of inheriting not only the mansion, but also the substantial debts that came with it. I reminded her, somewhat coldly, that inheriting meant taking responsibility for both assets and liabilities. I even pointed out that she had the option to renounce the inheritance within 5 months of being informed. The suggestion that she might sell the luxury items she had amassed over the years to cover the debts only elicited a flood of tears and desperate pleas for forgiveness. Despite her remorse, or perhaps because of the insincerity I felt underlined it, I found myself unable to offer any consolation. The conversation ended with a heavy heart on my part, as I was unable to reconcile her past actions with the cherished memory of my brother. Following Kyle's death, the plans for my wedding had to be postponed by a year. During this challenging period, the cloud of depression lingered over me, a stark reminder of the loss and betrayal I had experienced. Recognizing my distress, my husband and his family extended their heartfelt understanding and support. Their compassion was a beacon of light during a time darkened by loss and disappointment. Determined not to let the memory of my late brother down, I vowed to live a life of gratitude, channeling my energies into supporting and acknowledging those who had stood by me through thick and thin. When the wedding finally took place, it was not just a celebration of union, but also a tribute to Kyle's lasting impact on those around him. His popularity and the respect he commanded among his colleagues became poignantly evident as many of them visited his grave to pay their respects. They shared stories of his generosity and kindness, especially towards his coworkers, further cementing his legacy as a man who had genuinely cared for others beyond the confines of family and personal gain. Through these reflections and tributes, the wedding became a dual ceremony of love and remembrance, intertwining my new beginning with the honoring of a life that, while tragically cut short, had profoundly touched many. This convergence of joy and sorrow underscored the complexities of life and the enduring influence of genuine connections forged in both joyous and challenging times. I was always concerned that my brother's generosity might make him vulnerable to those looking to exploit his kind nature. However, the overwhelming support from friends and colleagues after his passing reassured me that his goodwill had been genuinely appreciated, not taken advantage of. Meanwhile, news about Laura's decline began to circulate within the jewelry industry and among our social circles. Known for her lavish lifestyle and a series of questionable relationships, she painted as stark contrast to my brother's legacy of generosity and integrity. Laura, who had once lived in luxury, was now forced to sell her opulent mansion due to her unsustainable spending habits and the mountain of debt she had accumulated over the years. Now, she found herself living in modest accommodations, a far cry from the grandeur she was accustomed to. Her financial downfall was a topic of quiet discussion and served as a cautionary tale about the perils of living beyond one's means. Reflecting on Laura's misfortunes, I couldn't help but feel vindicated in my long-held belief that marrying for money was a fundamentally flawed motivation. It was clear that Laura's priorities had led her to a lonely and challenging path, whereas my brother's focus on kindness and giving had earned him lasting respect and love from those around him. Motivated by these reflections, I vowed more fervently to honor my brother's memory by protecting his legacy. He had spent his life not only as a skilled surgeon, but as a pillar of support and generosity in our community. In his professional life, he was revered not just for his medical expertise, but for his willingness to go beyond the call of duty to assist his colleagues and patients alike. At home, he had always been my protector, guiding and supporting me through life's challenges. Determined to keep his spirit alive, I engaged more actively in community service and charity work, areas my brother was passionate about. I organized fundraisers and volunteered at the hospital where he had worked, helping to fund the programs he had started or supported. These efforts brought me a sense of closeness to him, a feeling that I was continuing his work in some way. Moreover, I took steps to ensure that the stories of his kindness and generosity were remembered and celebrated. I shared these stories at community gatherings and on social media, ensuring that his legacy would inspire others as much as it inspired me. The positive responses from people who had been touched by my brother's life encouraged me to keep sharing and celebrating his life. In doing so, I found a profound sense of purpose. While Laura's life seemed to spiral into chaos as a result of her choices, I found strength and fulfillment in upholding the values my brother had taught me. This contrast between our paths was a stark reminder of the different outcomes that result from our life choices. By choosing to embody my brother's principles of generosity and support, I not only honored his memory, but also enriched my own life, making it fuller and more meaningful. Through these actions, I not only kept my brother's memory alive, but also ensured that his legacy of kindness and selflessness continued to impact the community, proving that the values he lived by were his true lasting wealth. I'm just saying it's time for you to leave. Can't you look at yourself in the mirror and feel embarrassed? Am I embarrassing to you? Yes, you are. Everything about this is embarrassing. Even my close friends and boss are here, and thinking about them finding out you're becoming part of the family is so frustrating. My name is Olivia. I was born with a physical condition, and I use a wheelchair instead of my legs. I grew up in a family of 5 with my parents, who have passed away, and my lively brother, John. My parents raised me with as much love and care as any other child. They showered me with affection, and my brother John, though a bit overprotective, has always been supportive. That's how I've lived a happy life. Now, Madam CEO, here's the schedule for this month. I'm grateful and happy to be busy, but I do wish for a little break sometimes. Despite my appearance, I'm the CDO of a company. Even though my body is different, I do my best in everything I can. That's why I studied hard and didn't want to be outdone by others. My hard work paid off, and I was able to start my own business. While I'm discussing the schedule with my secretary, I get a call. "Hello, John. What's up?" "Hey, sorry to bother you when you're busy. Actually, I'm getting married, and I wanted to tell you first." "Olivia, really? Congratulations. What's the person like?" "We met through work. They're kind, good at cooking and housework, just wonderful." "That's great. As your sister, I'm relieved you found someone." "Stop talking like our mom, will you?" "Well, I was just worried if you could really find someone wonderful." "How?" "Well, the wedding is set for 5 months from now." "That's quite sudden, isn't it?" "With how things are nowadays, we just thought it was the right time." "I'm sorry it's all so rushed, but can you make it, Olivia?" "Of course. I'll be there. It's your wedding after all. I'll make it work no matter what. But you better come to my wedding too." "Thanks. Wait, your wedding, Olivia? I haven't heard anything about that." "Haha, don't work too hard. Okay, see you." As I hurriedly managed my work schedule for the wedding, my secretary watched me with a warm smile. My brother and I are busy people in different industries, and I haven't met his fiancée yet. The day of the wedding came, and as I was about to enter the venue, someone called out to me. "Hey, you there, wait a moment." "Oh, are you talking to me? Are you, by any chance?" "What? It's obvious, isn't it? I'm the bride, the star of today's show." "Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Olivia, John's sister." I was glad to meet Nicole, the bride, but her attitude seemed a bit strange. While I was wondering about it, she suddenly said, "Hey, what's with this woman? I can't believe this." "Nicole, what's going on? Don't touch me, please." "I wasn't told that John had a sister like you. I knew he had a sister, but not like this. I had no idea." It seemed like Nicole didn't like how I looked. That's why she acted so cold when we greeted each other. "What's the matter with you?" she said. "I don't care if you're John's sister or whatever. That's a different matter. How will you compensate if you infect me with something?" "Please calm down. There's nothing about me that you can catch." "Keep quiet. Your droplets are spreading. I can't believe this. People like you should be mentioned beforehand. Finding this out on the wedding day is the worst." "Worst? What about me is the worst?" "You should figure it out yourself. Anyway, John and I are getting married, so I'll have to deal with you whether I like it or not. If people find out someone like you is my sister-in-law, I'll be humiliated in front of everyone." "Use your head a bit." "Use my head? What do you mean?" "I'm saying you should be considerate enough to leave. Can't you look at yourself in the mirror and feel ashamed?" "Am I an embarrassment to you?" "Yes, all of it. Everything about this is embarrassing. Even my close friends and boss are here, and it's embarrassing that they'll know you're part of the family." "Do you always think like this?" "Huh, that's none of your business. Since I've caught John, the CEO, don't you dare get in my way." I was sure that Nicole was tricking my brother. She was clearly pretending to be nice. My brother, who is always kind and never gets angry, had been fooled by a strange woman before. Remembering those times, I didn't want to make things worse on his special day. Thinking about how important this day was for my brother, I decided to leave quietly. Then I'll be leaving now. I'll just leave the gift here." "Huh, I don't need money from someone like you. You don't even look like you can hold a decent job. You're just leeching off John, aren't you? I bet your gift is something small like $7, right?" "Is that so? Then I'll take this $70,000 gift back with me. It's quite heavy though." $70,000? Wait, if you had that much money, you should have said so earlier. I'll take it. "Sorry, I've already put it away. It's too late now. I'll be leaving then." "No, you leave that gift here. And why do you even have that much money?" "Oh, I see. That's money you took from John, isn't it?" "No, actually, I run a company that makes mobility equipment with a global reputation. Even though I look different, my company makes $700 million a year, so a gift like this is no big deal." All the more reason to leave that $70,000 here. I'll use it for John and my happiness. Honestly, I don't approve of your marriage to my brother. I can't accept someone like you who is just after his money. Stop raising your voice. It's your fault for being deceived. What's all this about? My brother John appeared, and Nickel looked shocked. Well, what are you talking about? Brother, no, it's not like that. I'm not after the money. I just wanted to support and be there for you, John. Hey, Nickel, what did you say to my precious sister, Olivia? What did you mean by what you said? John, why are you so angry? It doesn't matter to me if you're after my money or whatever. You can do as you like. It's my responsibility, and even if we break up someday, I won't be angry. But what I absolutely won't forgive is you disrespecting my dear Olivia. I was really surprised to see my usually gentle and calm brother raise his voice. But I also felt truly happy to hear him standing up for me. Meanwhile, Nickel, who was scolded by my brother, said, "Well, then she can come to the wedding, okay? So first, John, let's calm down, all right? What do you mean she can come? We don't need your permission. Do you really think I'd go through with a wedding with someone who's been so cruel to Olivia, the most important person in my world? There's no way that's happening." Why not? I just said your sister can come. That doesn't matter anymore. I can and won't marry a woman who insults my family. We're breaking off the wedding. Breaking off the wedding? Why? Both Olivia and I lost our parents when we still needed them. Olivia cried because she was lonely, but she still tried to cheer me up when I was sad. Even though she wanted to cry, she held it back and gave me the brightest smile. She was just a little kid in elementary school, and I was already in high school, a grown man. She held back her tears and told me to smile, and that gave me strength. Brother, you remembered that? Of course I do. How could I forget? You were holding back so many tears, but still managed to smile. I still remember that smile of yours to this day. That's why, even when work gets tough, I think of your smile, and it keeps me going. You tried to do house chores you only learned in home economics, but before I knew it, you were just making meals. You were preparing lunches too. Olivia and I supported each other through life like that. I won't forgive anyone who insults such an important family member. Apologize to Olivia. Supporting each other, really? That's so exaggerated. Take back every single thing you said to Olivia. Look her in the eyes and apologize properly. Don't say anything else. My brother kept insisting that Nicole apologize to me for the disrespect she showed. We siblings have had struggles that only we can understand, and maybe that's why her words felt like an insult. As I stood there, unable to do anything but watch my brother, someone approached us. Sorry to interrupt, just popping in here. Hey, do you even understand what kind of company you're working for? What? Why is the CEO here? You see, John has helped me a lot in business, and we even go out for meals together when we have time in our private lives. Isn't our company a distributor of mobility equipment? Yet your attitude and behavior are completely unacceptable from any angle. I looked at him surprised. Wait, Scott, why are you here? I asked. Scott, I'm sorry you had to see such an unpleasant scene, John said. But do you know Olivia? I had no idea either. I'm also shocked to learn that John's dear sister is Olivia. I'm in a relationship with Olivia, and I want to marry her. So I'm asking for your my brother-in-law's permission, Scott explained, his words a bit awkward. Really, Scott, bringing this up right now, and suddenly talking about being brothers-in-law? John said, shaking his head. This is typical Scott. John, Olivia is getting married to Scott, Anna interjected, trying to lighten the mood. But I trust you, Scott. I know you'll take good care of Olivia. Why is everyone suddenly so happy? John wondered aloud. John, I promise to devote my life to making Olivia happy. I won't let you down. Please, let me marry Olivia, Scott pleaded earnestly. And you're saying this here, right now? John said, still processing. My boyfriend Scott, who is also the CEO of Nickel Company, had just revealed his relationship with me to my brother John. They had both been friends in business and in life, but neither knew how we were all connected until now. Nickel, who was witnessing all this, finally spoke up. Wait a minute, what? So this woman is the girlfriend of our company's CEO, and John, the savvy entrepreneur, is her brother? That's incredible, but even if it's luck, Olivia worked hard to get here. She faced everything head-on and used her brains to succeed. Don't belittle her achievements by calling it luck. And by the way, she just became my fiancée a moment ago. So you understand what it means to insult the woman I'm marrying, right? Nickel replied defiantly, so what if I did? I don't care if she's your girlfriend or fiancée or whatever. What's a CEO going to do? It's just personal stuff, right? Well, yes, Scott replied calmly, but there are clients here, and the company's reputation is at stake. Your remarks, Nickel, are a serious issue. In my company, such behavior would be grounds for dismissal. I don't want to work with a company that harbors individuals like you. You can't just fire me. That would be a problem, Nickel protested. I'm sorry, please forgive me. I can't stand the idea of someone like you becoming my sister-in-law. If you can't understand why you need to apologize, then there's no point in talking any further, Scott said firmly. Wait, please. Breaking off the engagement and getting fired are big problems for me. How am I supposed to live if that happens? Nickel begged, her tone desperate. Why don't you look for another company? Scott suggested calmly. I'm done with you, Nickel, Scott said firmly. But you still want me to get you a job at my company? Nickel's eyes widened with desperation. John, please, can you help me get a job? I'm your sister-in-law. Isn't there something you can do? She pleaded. John shook his head slowly. Nickel, you really don't get it, do you? After all this mess, there's no way you're getting hired at my company. It's not about family ties. It's about trust and respect. But I'm family. Isn't it embarrassing to leave me unemployed? Nickel's voice cracked as she tried to defend herself. Embarrassing? No, it's not embarrassing, John said, his tone softening slightly. But if you're just calling this a mistake, it means you actually believe what you said. You haven't shown any real intention to apologize. It doesn't look like you mean it. Nickel's face flushed with panic as she realized the gravity of her situation. I didn't mean to offend anyone. I just said the wrong thing. If it was a mistake, Nickel, it was a big one, Scott said, his expression serious. I've faced many people's judgments, but you're the first to speak so openly and harshly to me. It was a shock, but now I see that some people really think like you do. Does that mean you'll forgive me? Nickel asked, her eyes wide with hope. No, I can't forgive you, Scott replied, shaking his head. Who wouldn't be upset after hearing what you said? Imagine if someone spoke to you like that. Would you be happy? If it were me, I'd probably respond even more harshly, Nickel admitted, her voice barely a whisper. Well, it's going to be tough for you from now on, but good luck, Scott said, turning away from her. Marrying someone who can say such hurtful things is impossible. Our parents in heaven would be disappointed if I married someone like that. Olivia nodded in agreement. That's true. Mom was so kind, and Dad was very compassionate. I see now that my idea of a perfect couple was based on them. I want to have a relationship like that with Scott. Scott smiled at Olivia, his eyes softening. We can build that kind of relationship together, Olivia. John stepped forward, his expression stern. Scott, could you let go of Olivia's hand for a moment? It seems you've made your decision, brother. And one more thing, Nickel. You are responsible for all the wedding expenses. Nickel's face fell. Ouch, that's going to be a big hit on my wallet, she muttered, her voice filled with despair. Well, Nickel, Scott continued, I think it's best to call off the wedding. I've already told all my friends, and I've posted about the dress, the food, and the venue on social media. Nickel's eyes widened with realization. No, I can't have the wedding called off. I've already told everyone. I've shared everything online. How am I supposed to explain this? Maybe you should delete those posts, Scott suggested calmly. Most people who see them don't even know you. Is it really worth boasting to strangers about something that's not going to happen? Nicole looked around frantically, trying to find a way out of her predicament. Wait, please. This is impossible. You have to reconsider. Think about it, please, she begged. Scott sighed, looking at Nicole with a mix of pity and resolve. Nicole, you need to think this over. What you did was hurtful and disrespectful. It's going to be hard for you, but you have to face the consequences of your actions. As Scott turned to leave, Nicole's voice grew more desperate. Please, Scott, don't leave me like this. I'll do anything to make it right, she cried. Scott paused for a moment, then continued walking away, leaving Nicole to reflect on her actions. The reality of her situation was finally sinking in, and she realized that she had to take responsibility for the chaos she had caused. Meanwhile, Olivia and John watched the scene unfold with a sense of relief and closure. They knew that their family dynamics would be different from now on, but they also understood that this change was necessary for everyone involved. As they left, Olivia took Scott's hand, feeling a sense of hope for their future together. Despite the turmoil, she knew that they had made the right decision and that they could face whatever challenges lay ahead with confidence and strength. Back at home, Olivia and Scott sat down together, reflecting on the events of the day. I'm so proud of you, Scott, Olivia said softly. You stood up for what's right, even when it was difficult. Scott smiled, holding Olivia close. I couldn't have done it without you, Olivia. You've been my rock through all of this, and I'm so grateful for your support. As they looked out the window, the sun set on a day that marked a new beginning for them both. They knew that the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but they were ready to face it together with love and determination. And so they moved forward, leaving the past behind and embracing the future with open hearts and unwavering faith in each other. I feel like I hear something, but let's not worry about it and move on. Wait, where are you going, brother? We're off to host an engagement party for Scott and Olivia. Well then, my princess, shall we go? Wait, what? Brother Scott? This is suddenly so embarrassing. Thanks to my brother's kind planning, what was supposed to be a simple wedding turned into a surprise engagement party for Scott and me. Many of our colleagues and mutual friends were invited. When Scott and I arrived and started greeting everyone, my brother suddenly began crying. Some people found it amusing and laughed, while others, maybe feeling touched, also shed some tears. Because of my brother's kind nature, Scott and I could announce our engagement in a warm and friendly setting. It felt good to have the support and love of our friends and family around us. Everyone seemed genuinely happy for us, and it made the moment even more special. Meanwhile, Nicole was kicked out of the venue, just as my brother had said she would be. Nicole had to pay for the entire cost of the ceremony and went into debt to cover it. She had hoped to show off her new status as the CEO's wife and enjoy some fame and respect. However, things didn't go as she planned. She was fired from her job, and instead of living the life of a CEO's wife, she's now being chased by debt collectors. Nicole had planned to live with my brother, so her apartment lease had already been canceled. Now she's left without a place to live and is dealing with the reality of her situation. Some people in the industry said they saw her in the park, looking lost and distressed, but it's unclear if it was really her. The glamorous life she hoped for has crumbled, and she's facing the harsh truth of her decisions. As for me, Olivia, I'm finally getting married to Scott. Don't worry, we will live happily together. My brother assures me that Scott is trustworthy and that we will have a wonderful life together. We're excited to start this new chapter and build a happy future. I know it's safe, but there's still this uneasy feeling I can't quite put into words. What is this feeling? Hey John, I hope it's not too forward of me to ask, but could the four of us visit the grave on our next day off? I'd really like to meet your parents too. Scott, you're such a kind guy. Hey brother, you're going to make me cry again, haha. Thanks to Scott's thoughtful suggestion, we've decided to spend our next day off visiting her parents' grave. It's something that feels both important and right to do. Even though my brother recently broke off his engagement, he's managed to stay his usual cheerful self, which is comforting to see. He's been so strong through everything, and I hope that one day a wonderful person will come into his life, someone who will make him the happiest man in the world. He deserves so much joy and love. As I thought about this, I realized my brother likely felt the same way. He's always been someone who looks out for others, and it's clear he wants the best for everyone around him. When I look up at the sky, it's a bright, clear blue without a single cloud in sight. There's something so peaceful about it, and it feels like the perfect setting for what we're planning. Watching my brother as he gazes up at the sky, I can't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude for everything he's done for me. He's always been there, looking out for me and making sure I was taken care of. I silently thank him in my heart, appreciating all the love and support he's given me over the years. As we plan our visit, I think about how meaningful it will be. Visiting the grave is not just about paying respects. It's about connecting with the past and honoring the memories of those who came before us. It's a chance to reflect on where we come from and the people who shaped our lives in ways we may not even fully understand. I know this visit will bring up a lot of emotions, but it feels right to do this together. Scott's suggestion has given us the opportunity to share something deeply personal and meaningful. I can already feel how this experience will bring us closer, and I'm grateful for that. My brother has always been someone I look up to. He's faced so many challenges with a smile, and he's never let anything bring him down for long. I admire his strength and resilience, and I know that he's going to find happiness again. It's just a matter of time before someone amazing comes into his life and sees him for the incredible person he is. As I look back on everything, I realize just how much my brother has sacrificed for me. He's always put my needs first, making sure I had everything I needed to succeed. He's been my rock, my guide, and my friend, and I'm so grateful for everything he's done. I can't imagine my life without his support and love. The sky above is so vast and endless, just like the gratitude I feel for my brother. As he stands there, looking up at the sky, I silently tell him, "Thank you for everything. Thank you for raising me with so much care and for always being there when I needed you." This visit will be a way to honor not just her parents, but also the bond we share as a family. It's a chance to come together and support each other through the ups and downs of life. I'm looking forward to the day when we can all stand together at the grave, reflecting on the past and looking forward to the future with hope and love. My brother's strength and kindness inspire me every day. I hope that he finds someone who appreciates him for who he is and makes him as happy as he's made me. He deserves all the love and joy in the world, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for him. As we prepare for our visit, I feel a sense of peace knowing that we're doing something meaningful together. It's a reminder of the importance of family and the enduring bonds that connect us, no matter what challenges we face. I'm grateful for this opportunity to share something so special with my brother and Scott, and I know it will be a day we'll always remember. I'm Mary, and I've been a doctor for almost as long as I've been Adam's wife. We've had our share of good times and tough moments, but those 32 years together passed by so quickly. Our home, big and warm, was always full of life, especially when our sons, Larry and Brian, were young. Larry and Brian were very different from each other, like night and day, but each brought their own kind of happiness into our lives. Adam and I, both being doctors, worked really hard to create a comfortable life for our family. Over the years, we managed to buy a couple of apartments, renting them out for some extra money. Life seemed to be going well until one day, Adam came home looking pale and more serious than I had seen him in years. "Mary, we need to talk," he said with a heavy tone as he put down his medical bag by the door. "I had some tests done last week. The results, they came back. It's cancer, Mary." The months that followed were a whirlwind of hospital visits, treatments, and endless hours spent in waiting rooms. Adam fought bravely, but the cancer was relentless. Watching the strongest man I knew weaken and fade away was heartbreaking. No amount of medical knowledge could prepare me for that kind of pain. One evening, as we sat quietly in the living room, Adam took my hand and said, "Mary, if things don't go the way we hope, you need to make sure everything is taken care of with the boys. The will is all set, and you'll be fine financially." Not long after that conversation, he was gone. The funeral was a solemn event, with family, friends, and colleagues coming from all over to pay their respects. But it was the quiet in the house after everyone left that hit me the hardest. The empty spaces where Adam used to be, his belongings still in their usual places, it was painful to see and remember. A few days after the funeral, I was in the kitchen, trying to figure out what to do with all the leftover food, when Larry stormed in, his face full of worry and anger. Brian followed behind him, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else but here. "Mom, we need to talk about Dad's will," Larry said, getting straight to the point, as he always did. I sighed and put down the cling film I was holding. "Yes, I know. Your father left everything to me. He wanted to make sure." I was trying to manage things when Larry slammed his hand on the counter and said, "But what about me and Brian? We're his sons. It's not fair that we get nothing." Brian stepped in, trying to calm things down. "Larry, let's not rush into this. Mom's still grieving, and we can sort this out without fighting." Larry shot him a look and said, "It's easy for you to say. You're not thinking about the future like I am." I leaned against the counter, feeling the weight of their stares. "Your father and I built this life together, and he trusted me to take care of things. But I understand what you're saying, Larry. It's not my intention to leave you out." "So what then?" Larry asked, crossing his arms and raising his voice. "Do we just wait until you decide it's the right time to give us our share?" "Larry, watch your tone," I snapped, my patience wearing thin. "I am still your mother." Brian stepped between us, holding up his hands like a referee. "Both of you, please. This isn't helping." "Mom, maybe there's a middle ground here." I nodded and rubbed my temples, thinking it over. "Okay, here's what we can do. The apartments your father and I invested in, the ones downtown," I started, but Larry interrupted. "Yes, those." I gave him a look that told him to be quiet for a moment. "I was thinking you each take one. They're yours to live in or rent out, and from the savings, let's say $320,000 each to help you get started with whatever you need." Larry bit his lip, clearly doing the math in his head. "And the rest of the stuff? The house, the money?" he asked. "That stays with me for now," I replied. "When I'm gone, it will come to you, as your father wanted." Larry looked like he wanted to argue more, but Brian nudged him and said, "Let's think about this. It's a fair start. Mom's not leaving us with nothing." Larry finally nodded, though he still seemed unhappy. "Fine, but I want this in writing, Mom. No more surprises." Of course, I agreed. "We'll get everything documented properly." As they left the kitchen, I could hear Brian whispering to Larry, "Give her a break, will you? She's doing her best." Larry muttered something under his breath that I couldn't catch, and honestly, I didn't really want to. As I washed up the dishes, I wondered if Adam could see us and what he would think. I hoped I was making the right choice, but only time would tell. And time, that tricky thing, isn't always on your side. It was a sunny afternoon, one of those rare days that makes everything feel okay, when Larry brought Julie over to meet me for the first time. They hadn't been dating long, but Larry was already head over heels for her. You could tell by the way he was fussing over her, which wasn't like him at all. They walked in, and right away, Julie had this confident air about her, like she owned the place. She was dressed up and strolled into my living room, with barely a hello, her eyes scanning everything around. "Nice place you've got here," she said, flipping her hair back as she sat down without waiting to be invited. Larry was sitting beside her, grinning like a fool. I forced a smile, trying to be a good host. "Thank you, Julie. Can I get you anything? Coffee, tea?" "Coffee sounds lovely," she replied, then turned to Larry. "Babe, make sure it's black, no sugar." Larry nodded and headed to the kitchen, leaving me alone with her in my own living room, feeling like I was the guest. The silence was awkward until she finally spoke. "So Larry tells me you're pretty well off," she said, looking around at the decor. "I'm used to a certain standard, you know. My parents made sure of that." "That's good to hear," I said, not really sure what else to say. Larry came back with the coffee and handed Julie her cup. She took a sip and made a face. It's all right. Anyway, we've been talking about our future together, planning ahead, you know." "That's wise," I said, glancing at Larry, hoping he'd give me some clue about where this conversation was going. Julie set her cup down and said, "Yeah, and speaking of planning, we've been thinking about the wedding. You know, I want something special. Larry has probably told you I saw this place that's perfect for a rehearsal dinner, but it's a bit pricey. It's about $50,000. I almost choked on my coffee. $50,000 just for the rehearsal dinner. Larry jumped in. "Mom, it's important to Lauren. We want to start things off right." I put my cup down, feeling a storm brewing inside. "Look, that's a lot of money for a dinner, Julie. We need to be reasonable." Julie's face hardened. "Reasonable? Larry says you have the means. I don't see why we should compromise on something that important." Larry was nodding along with her, but I could see the unease in his eyes. He knew he was asking too much. "I'm all for celebrating," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "but $50,000 is more than I can justify." Julie stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I'm not used to compromising on my standards, Mary. I made it clear to Larry that I expected a certain standard of living." Larry tried to calm things down. "Mom, maybe we can find a middle ground." "There's no middle ground on $50,000 for a dinner, Larry. That's final," I snapped, my patience running out. Julie picked up her purse and glared at me. "Fine, if that's how it's going to be, then maybe we need to rethink some things." They left soon after, and I sat there, stunned by what had just happened. The nerve of that girl, coming into my home, drinking my coffee, and telling me how to spend my money, it felt like a slap in the face, a wake-up call I wasn't prepared for. A few days later, I was out at the grocery store when Larry and Julie decided to drop by again. By the time I got home, Brian was awkwardly trying to entertain them in the living room. The tension in the air was so thick that it made me want to turn around and leave, but it was my house, so I gathered my courage and walked in. Julie, all dressed up as usual, handed me a list as soon as I put down my grocery bags. "Mary, we've thought a lot about the wedding gifts, and here's what we've decided on. I hope this will be easier for you to handle." I quickly looked over the list she handed me. It was surprisingly reasonable kitchen appliances, some nice china, even a couple of pieces of furniture. "This seems quite reasonable," I said, feeling a moment of relief. "I think these are wonderful choices, really." Larry looked at Julie with hope in his eyes, but just as I was about to discuss where we could buy these items, Julie's expression changed suddenly. She gasped, "Oh no, this isn't right. Give that back." She snatched the list from my hands and dug through her purse, pulling out another sheet of paper. "Here's the actual list." This new list was nothing like the first. It included an apartment, a luxury car, an exclusive vacation, and even diamond jewelry. My jaw dropped. Is this some kind of joke? Julie didn't flinch. "No joke, Mary. These are the gifts we expect only the best for our wedding." I stared at her, then at Larry, waiting for him to say something, anything, to show he didn't agree with this craziness. But he just stood there, looking between us, clearly conflicted but saying nothing. I couldn't hold back anymore. "Larry, why are you letting her do this? You know this is unreasonable." Julie cut in, her voice rising. This doesn't concern you, Mary. You just need to pay up and keep quiet. When Brian stood up, his face was serious. That's enough, Julie. You're not going to talk to our mom like that. This is her house, and you're way out of line. You need to leave now. The room was filled with tension as Larry and Julie gathered their things. Julie was muttering under her breath, clearly angry. This is ridiculous. We'll remember this. They left, and the door slammed shut behind them. I sat down, feeling the weight of the whole situation pressing on me. Brian sat beside me and put an arm around my shoulders. We'll figure this out, Mom, but you can't let them push you into giving more than you can or should. It's not right. He was right, of course, but as I sat there with my son, I couldn't help but worry about Larry. How had things gotten so out of hand? How could he not see what this was doing to our family? The silence that followed was filled with unspoken worries and fears for the future. I knew then that this was far from over. It was only going to get harder from here. In the weeks that followed, I received constant phone calls from Larry. Each one was more demanding than the last, his tone desperate and sometimes almost frantic. Mom, you don't understand. I can't look poor next to Lauren's family, he'd argue, his voice cracking with stress. You have the money. Why can't you just help me out here? I sat at the kitchen table, phone pressed against my ear, feeling a knot in my stomach. Larry, it's not about the money. It's about living within your means. Lauren's expectations are too high, and you can't keep up with them without going into serious debt. He'd scoff, his frustration boiling over. What do you know about it? I'm not going to live like a pauper. I need more from the inheritance now. The amount you've offered isn't enough. Larry, I've offered to cover half the wedding costs, up to $135,000, and give a $8,000 gift. That's more than generous. Everything has to be agreed upon with me, though no surprises. There was a pause, then a sharp laugh from him. That's nothing. You're just being stingy. You have $1 million sitting there. Why are you holding out on me? Because it's not just about the money, I replied, my patience wearing thin. It's about not feeding into this unrealistic fantasy that's going to ruin you. He yelled, loud enough that I had to pull the phone away from my ear. I don't need this. I'll handle it my way. Forget you. And with that, the call ended. Months passed in silence. I tried to keep myself busy with daily routines, trying not to worry about Larry, but the peace was short-lived. One afternoon, the phone rang, and it was my sister-in-law, Hannah. Mary, I thought you should know. Hannah's voice was hesitant, careful. Larry is flying all the wedding guests to Bermuda. He sold his apartment to pay for it and expects you to get there on your own. He mentioned you weren't interested in helping. I hung up, a mix of anger and sorrow swirling inside me. How could he be so reckless? Before I could process it all, Brian came into the room, his expression serious. Mom, there's something you need to hear. I recorded their conversation when they were sitting here in the living room. He handed me an audio recorder. I pressed play, and the voices of Larry and Julie filled the kitchen. Your mom is just a nasty old woman with a fat wallet. We need to squeeze as much as we can out of her and then cut her off, Julie's voice said coldly. Larry's voice responded, just as chilling. Whatever it takes, Lauren, I'm not going to let her control us. If it comes down to it, I'll kick her out in her underwear. I turned off the recorder, my hands trembling. Hearing my own son speak like that about me, his mother, was too much. The room spun as I tried to understand the depth of his betrayal. Deciding to fly to Bermuda wasn't easy, but Brian was by my side, both of us tense but determined to face whatever awaited us. When we landed and approached the venue, I was taken aback by the sheer extravagance of it all, flowers everywhere, lights strung like stars across the evening sky, and music floating in the air. As we walked into the gathering, I spotted Larry and Julie mingling with the guests. They looked like the perfect couple, all smiles and laughter. My heart ached to see my son so lost in this artificial paradise. Before I could take another step towards them, Julie spotted us. Her smile vanished, replaced by a scowl as she marched over, her high heels clicking angrily against the stone pathway. "You shouldn't be here," she hissed, stopping just inches from me, her voice loud enough to draw attention. "This is my day, and you're not welcome." I was stunned, but before I could respond, her parents, who had overheard everything, came over. Her father, a tall and stern-looking man, spoke first. "Julie, that is no way to speak to your guest, especially not to Larry's mother." His tone was firm, and it made her cheeks flush with embarrassment. Her mother, looking just as upset, turned to me with an apologetic smile. "Mary, please come with us. Let's find you a place to sit." They guided us away to a table at the edge of the setup. It was clear that this spot was an afterthought, with no proper setting. The ceremony started soon after, with speeches that felt empty given the tension. Then, unexpectedly, I was handed the microphone. I stood up, my legs shaky but my resolve firm. "I came here today to wish my son and his new wife a happy future," I began, my voice steady despite how I felt inside. "But I also believe in honesty and integrity, qualities that have been sadly missing in the events leading up to this day." Julie's face went from pink to red, her eyes glaring at me with anger. I was asked for money time and again in amounts that no reasonable person would find justifiable. When I couldn't meet these demands, I was threatened with being cut off from my family and future grandchildren. My voice cracked a little, but I continued. Brian, seeing my distress, stepped closer and put a supportive hand on my shoulder. I nodded at him, then played the audio recording he had made. Julie's voice filled the air, cold and calculating, discussing how they would get more money from me. Larry's voice agreed, saying he was willing to leave me with nothing for the sake of his bride. The crowd murmured, shocked and disapproving. I turned off the recorder, and the silence was heavy. I gave my son an apartment and $35,000, and yet it was never enough. Today, I'm making it clear that I will not be treated as an ATM or threatened. I am disowning Larry and Julie. I wish them well, but from this day forward, I am choosing to remove myself from their lives. The reaction was immediate. Julie screamed, her voice shrill and wild. "You've ruined my wedding. I curse you." After everything that had happened, coming back home was bittersweet. In the quiet, I made a decision that even surprised me. I quit my job. I had spent years healing others as a doctor, but now it was time to heal myself and rebuild the life that recent events had shaken. Brian, bless his heart, had just graduated from art college and was full of ideas and ambition. With the $37,000 I gave him, Brian opened his own tattoo parlor. It wasn't just any shop, it quickly became a place where art and skin came together in beautiful ways. Brian put his heart and soul into his work, and it paid off. He started entering tattoo contests, and soon his name was on everyone's lips in the local community. Before we knew it, he was opening more locations, creating a network of salons that became a hotspot for tattoo enthusiasts. I'd watch him sketch late into the night, his dedication a sharp contrast to the chaos his brother had chosen. "You're doing amazing, Ollie," I'd say, pride swelling in my chest. During these peaceful months, Larry reappeared one afternoon. He showed up at the door, his eyes tired, his shoulders slumped, a far cry from the ambitious, sharp man he used to be. "Mom, I need to talk," he said, not waiting for an invitation to sit down. His voice was weary, so different from the demanding tone I had grown used to. I sighed and motioned for him to continue. "What is it, Larry?" "It's Lauren. She's driving me crazy, wanting more and more. Nothing's ever enough. I got a second job, but it's still not enough for her." His words were filled with desperation, but they couldn't erase the past so easily. "Larry, I warned you. I told you that living like that with someone like her was unsustainable." He rubbed his face, frustration clear. I know you did, but I thought," his voice trailed off, hopelessness replacing any explanation. "Thought what?" That money would just appear because you wanted it to. My tone was harsh, years of pent-up frustration making it hard to soften my words. Look at your brother. He started with the same amount and made something of himself without stepping on others. Larry bristled. Yeah, well, not everyone's like Brian, are they? I have rights to the inheritance too, remember? And when you're gone, it'll come to me. That was the last straw. Get out, Larry, I said, my voice cold and firm. And don't come back. Not this time. You chose your path. His jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought he might argue, but then he turned and walked out, the door slamming shut behind him. As I stood in the silence that followed, Brian came downstairs, having heard the last part of our exchange. Are you okay, Mom? He asked. I nodded, wrapping my arms around him. I am now, thanks to you. Let's just focus on the good we can do and the life we can build. He hugged me back, his presence a comforting reminder that not everything was lost in that moment. I knew that despite the heartaches, the journey was still worth it. We had each other, and that was enough to keep moving forward. After the storm with Larry had passed, our home settled into a calm I hadn't felt in years. It was during this peaceful time that Brian brought someone special home. Her name was Joyce, and she was everything Jolie wasn't: kind, humble, and genuinely caring. As the weeks turned into months, their relationship grew stronger, and soon they announced their engagement. The wedding was nothing like Larry's extravagant affair. It was a simple, heartfelt ceremony in our backyard. Flowers from the garden, homemade decorations, and a small group of close friends and family made the day perfect. During the reception, I pulled Brian aside and said, "You've chosen a wonderful woman," my voice thick with emotion. He squeezed my hand and replied, "I learned from the best," giving me a knowing look. Life moved quickly after that. They sold the apartment I had given Brian, added some of their savings, and bought a small, cozy house just a few miles away. One sunny afternoon, while we were having tea in their new living room, Joyce shared some exciting news. "Mary, we're expecting twins," she announced, her eyes shining with joy. I nearly dropped my cup, overwhelmed with happiness. "Twins? Oh my goodness, that's wonderful." Brian beamed, his pride evident. "We wanted you to be the first to know. We're really happy, Mom." "Twins," I repeated, letting the words sink in. Grandchildren, it was a new chapter, one I was eager to begin. As for Larry, news from him was rare. The last I heard, he had divorced Julie. She had taken nearly everything in the split, leaving him to start over in another city. Despite the pain he had caused, it hurt to know he was out there somewhere, struggling because of his choices. One evening, as I sat looking through old photo albums, Brian came and sat beside me. He noticed a picture of Larry and me from years ago. "Do you ever hear from him?" he asked softly. I shook my head. "No, after everything, he's chosen his path, and I have to respect that, even if it breaks my heart." Brian put an arm around me. "He's still my brother, Mom. Maybe one day he'll come around." Maybe, I agreed, though I wasn't really sure if he ever would. I believed it too, but for now, we have plenty to keep us busy, especially with those twins on the way. Brian chuckled. "Yeah, you're about to be the busiest grandma in town." We both laughed, and the sound filled the room with warmth. Despite the past, despite the mistakes and heartaches, this moment with Brian felt like everything was exactly as it should be. Life was moving forward, and so were we, with new hopes and dreams just around the corner. I started the divorce because I saw that a spouse who was financially struggling wasn't valuable to me. My world was turned upside down when, on a business trip, my husband suddenly told me he wanted a divorce and that he was already married to his lover. To make things worse, he accused me of marrying him just for his money and demanded that I give up any rights to our property. Facing my indifferent husband, who had always looked down on me since we got married, led to his complete downfall. My name is Lisa. I'm 40 years old. I was raised by a single mother after my father died when I was in kindergarten. Despite the financial hardships, we found happiness as a family of 3. Even now, with a decent job and salary, I still live frugally because of my upbringing. I married Larry, a wealthy man I met through a friend. I was drawn to his kindness and the new possibilities he introduced to me. After we got married, our different views on money and gender roles became clear. Larry imagined a traditional home where I would stay at home, but I was committed to my career and staying financially independent. Before we married, Larry suggested I become a housewife, assuming I would accept traditional roles. However, I made it clear I wanted to keep working until we had kids, pointing out the financial advantages. I managed to convince him, but the reality of balancing work and home responsibilities was hard. Even though I worked full-time, I still had to do all the house chores, leaving us little time together. Meanwhile, Larry, sticking to a traditional husband's role, did nothing at home. He just enjoyed his dinner and relaxed when he got home. Trying to balance work and home life strained our relationship and made me wonder if this was really what marriage was supposed to be like. I was afraid to tell Larry how unhappy I was because I thought he might make me quit my job, even though he didn't help at home. I hoped that having children might improve our relationship, but we were becoming more distant, making me doubt we could start a family. Feeling it was urgent to talk about this, I approached Larry. "Hey, we should think about having kids, right?" I said. "Kids? You're pretty energetic for someone tired from work and chores," he replied. "It's not about that. I want to have children. We haven't been married long, but I'm already over 32. Women can only have children for a certain time, and it's getting harder for me to conceive as I get older. It's almost too late. But we don't need kids. If we have one, you'll expect me to help, right? You know I'm busy with work and won't help with raising children. Isn't it strange to say you won't help with child rearing even before they're born? I plan to raise them alone, but shouldn't you at least want to help? It's your child too. Child rearing is your job. I'm working to support the family, so I definitely won't help with the kids. You'll just complain that I don't help, making me the bad guy. You must have been taught to be poor and have lots of kids since you were born. We're not poor. We don't need kids. End of discussion. Larry abruptly ended the conversation and went to his room. Alone in the living room, I broke down in tears. My desire for children was not only rejected, but he also mocked my upbringing. After this, our relationship got worse quickly. We barely talked, and the hope of having children faded as I continued to balance work and home duties. Taking on significant projects at work, I found myself growing more distant from Larry. One day, as I told him about an upcoming business trip, his unexpected kindness caught me off guard. He wished me well and hinted at a big surprise when I returned. Despite having given up on him, his smile made me hope. But my hope was crushed when I came back. The front door wouldn't open. Larry had changed the locks. His first surprise was announcing our divorce. He claimed to have faked my signature and filed the papers with a friend as a witness. Inside, he handed me a document to sign, giving up my rights to any property division and protesting the false accusations. I insisted that we both give up our rights to any property, and I wanted this to be a public agreement. Larry stubbornly argued and revised the document on his computer, leading to a tense argument as I left the house. He kept mocking me for being poor and even thought about throwing out my things. A few days later, Larry called me in a panic. "What did you do?" he asked. "I haven't done anything. Why are you panicking?" I have many questions. First, I was told to leave the apartment. "Oh, you were still living there. That's not allowed. It's a new month. You're trespassing." "Trespassing? But it's my house." "Are you okay? Did you forget it was a company apartment I rented? I was the leaseholder, so naturally, you can't live there anymore." "That's ridiculous. How could you do this? I can't believe you didn't know. I'm not the one who should be accused here. Didn't I tell you that you can't just change the locks of a rental apartment? It's my house. I can change the locks if I want. Didn't you listen? It was my lease. And even if you were the leaseholder, the owner is the apartment manager. You can't change the locks without telling them. Is that so? Also, I ended the lease while you changed the locks. I was allowed to live there until this month. I was planning to return, but now you've unlawfully altered someone else's property, which could be criminal damage. Wait, why did you end it so early? Criminal damage? Is that why the police are at the front door now? I'm too scared to open it. Don't worry, it's probably not for trespassing or criminal damage. It's better to talk to them. Why do I know about the police? Because I reported you for filing the divorce papers yourself. It looks like you've committed crimes like forgery and fraudulent use of a document. Divorce papers can be filed by one person, but only with mutual agreement and personal signatures. Since you forged my signature and the witness, it's clearly a crime. Larry seemed unaware of his guilt. So the divorce papers you submitted are invalid, and your marriage with Laura can't happen either. How do you know about Laura? Did you think I knew nothing? I hired a private detective agency to investigate your affair with Laura. It was a busy time at work, and coordinating with the agency was tough. Plus, you even held a grand wedding ceremony. While I was supposedly on a business trip, I actually took time off work to do some research and prepare documents because I knew about Larry bringing Laura home. It would have been impossible to gather this evidence while working. After I told Larry everything, he was speechless and seemed quite upset, even over the phone. Then he pleaded with me, "Please don't tell Laura I'm divorced." Why would I? There's no such fact to tell. Really, thank you. Are you misunderstanding something? When did you become divorced? That fake divorce paper is invalid, remember? So legally, you're still my husband, not divorced. What? So since you cheated while still legally my husband, Laura needs to pay compensation. I sent the demand for compensation to her house yesterday by express delivery. She didn't know you were married, right? Then I can't withdraw the claim at this point. I knew Laura believed Larry was single, but I deliberately sent the compensation demand. Laura hasn't contacted me yet, so maybe she hasn't received the letter. It should arrive soon. Should you be on the phone with me when you also have to deal with the police? You're busy. I'll ignore the police. I won't be arrested. I'm going to Laura's house now to get the letter back before she or her family can accept it. He then hung up and probably went straight to Laura's house to wait for the postman at the front door. I knew it would be futile because the letter was sent as registered mail to Laura only. Even if he waited for the postman, he couldn't receive it. A few hours later, a disheartened Larry called me. According to him, there was an incident when the postman arrived. Finally, I'll take that envelope. Who are you? You don't live here, right? I'm practically a resident here since I'm married. I have the right to receive the mail. I see, but I can't give you this envelope. It's registered mail for Laura only. What? Give it to me? Absolutely not. If you're so eager, ask Laura for permission. What's going on here? Oh, Larry, what's all this noise? Laura, this is registered mail for you. This man insisted on taking it. Sorry for the disturbance. What's this? A demand for compensation? Larry, you were married? What's going on here? Sorry, it's just, she's an ex-wife from a long time ago. I was embarrassed to say I'm divorced. I'm sorry for keeping it a secret, but isn't it strange? We haven't been dating long, and suddenly there's a demand for compensation. If you were divorced before we started dating, there shouldn't be any problem, right? Well, my ex-wife is crazy. Maybe she's demanding compensation out of spite because I got married. That was the excuse he gave, but his lie was soon exposed. The envelope included a letter I wrote along with my contact information, so Laura called me directly. During that call, I told her about the affair, the invalid divorce, and that they had a wedding ceremony while he was still married to me. Although they had a wedding ceremony, they hadn't submitted the marriage registration yet. Larry wanted to submit it on April Fool's Day, so it was still pending. He probably delayed submitting the marriage registration because he was unsure whether the divorce was finalized. After being exposed, Larry left Laura's house and shamelessly contacted me again. I still had something to tell him, so we agreed to meet at a nearby cafe. As soon as I arrived, Larry said, "Lisa, please withdraw the compensation claim. Let's pretend we've been separated for a long time and officially divorced now. I can apologize to Laura for being secretly divorced and maybe cover it up. Do you think I'm desperate to stay married to you? I was going to file for divorce anyway, but since you cheated, you'll pay compensation." "Just trying to extort money from me, huh? Typical of the poor. You have such a poor heart," he said. "You're talking nonsense. Depending on my answer, everything can change. There's still an option where we don't divorce if I say no. You can't reject it, meaning you can't marry Laura and your marital status will be exposed." "Fine, I'll pay the compensation. Just divorce me now. Sign here." Then, about property division. "Property division? How much more do you want to take from me? Compensation should be enough. Remember we agreed to waive property division, right? So let's make it official." "All right, you're not as bad as I thought. Thank you." We then went to a public notary, made a public document for compensation and property division, and then to the city hall to submit the divorce papers, finalizing our divorce. Relieved, I exchanged final words with Larry. "Glad we don't have to divide property." "What are you saying? I'm the one who benefits from that. By the way, do you even have assets after paying me compensation?" "Laura will also claim damages. She mentioned charging you for the wedding expenses." "That's impossible. I'm marrying Laura. She can't claim that we're divorced now, so there should be no problem." "Still living in a fantasy, huh? You committed marriage fraud. You had a wedding while still married. Do you think Laura still believes you?" "Marriage fraud. That's ridiculous. Laura will believe me." "Believe that if you want. I heard from Laura directly. Also, weren't the guests at your wedding paid actors? You still owe them, you know." "You know about that? I haven't paid them yet. What does it matter to you? You could have just taken property division and been better off." "That's what I wanted to tell you. Even if we had divided property, you would have benefited more." "What are you talking about, poor woman? Your family is poor and you only make $230,000 a year, right? Even if you got a raise, it would be barely $30,000. You don't have any property." "You keep calling me poor, so I thought you might be mistaken. Yes, my salary is indeed $145,000, but you know I work for a foreign company, right? It seems you have no interest in me, but I became a director of the American branch. It's not $145,000 per year, but per month. $170,000 per month, so that's an annual income of $2.5 million. You're still bad with numbers. How do you manage to keep a job? It's $2.5 million a year. $2.5 million? That can't be true. Of course, I haven't had the chance to spend such an amount, so I've been saving it for the future. The savings from before our marriage aren't part of the property division, but there's still a considerable amount since our marriage. So I could have received half of that in the property division. You were my wife after all. I'll get the divorce papers corrected. Are you okay? After all the contempt, you think I'd gladly undo the divorce if you have that much money? You don't need to claim compensation, right? It's just a small amount for you. He who laughs at 1 cent will weep for 1 cent. This compensation is for the mental anguish you caused me. I'd like to claim more, honestly. And since we've made it official, make sure to pay it, even in installments. I'll be penniless. Also, don't go back to that apartment. Your belongings should have been moved to your parents' house by now. You thought I had few belongings, but that was because I had already moved most of them. Were you that indifferent to me? I can have so little, so I have to go back to my parents' house. They don't know anything yet, do they? Let me explain. Don't say anything. I already told them everything. It's only fair to explain why we're divorcing. Oh, and your father said never to step over our threshold again, so I have nowhere to go. He collapsed and I left the cafe. Later, I heard he caused trouble at the police station. Despite my advice, he went back to the apartment. He just sat there aimlessly in the empty apartment until the manager called the police, and he was taken away. I'm not sure if it was for obstructing public duties, trespassing, or the falsified divorce papers. Eventually, his parents took responsibility for him. After talking with me and learning about Laura, they decided that apologizing and paying damages to Laura's family came first. They went to Laura's house to apologize, kneeling in front of her family. They settled everything without pressing charges for marriage fraud, even paying for the wedding expenses. I had expected them to sue, so it was disappointing they didn't. I decided to pursue legal action against him for forging the divorce papers. Larry offered a settlement, but I didn't withdraw the lawsuit. I didn't want him to think everything could be solved with money. I wanted him to be convicted and understand the gravity of his actions, even if it cost time and money. I left everything to my lawyer, so it wasn't too burdensome for me. Even though it took time, Larry, exposed for his actions and the marriage fraud, couldn't stay at his company anymore. After being detained by the police and subsequently absent without leave, he was eventually fired. He ended up living at his parents' home, working all day at a relative's construction company. His father took all his earnings, leaving him with no income. I thought his parents wouldn't abandon him, but they were stricter than I expected. They paid my compensation and Laura's compensation, planning to make him work hard until he repaid everything. He lived in a shed-like place with no electricity, receiving only $10 per day for food, deducted from his salary. They planned to kick him out once he'd repaid everything, a harsh fate. After years of hard work, I was offered a position at the head office abroad, so I moved overseas after the divorce was finalized. I worried that Larry might come to me for help or harbor resentment, but moving abroad alleviated those concerns. Initially, I thought work would be my sole companion for a while, but life took an unexpected turn. I soon found myself in a new relationship. I am now dating a foreign executive at our head office. Things have progressed quickly and I'm pregnant with plans to marry soon. I shared everything about my past and my ex-husband with him, and he's been incredibly understanding and supportive. We've discussed our future together in depth. I'll be taking maternity leave soon, and we've planned for me to return to work afterward. He's enthusiastic about taking paternity leave and embracing the role of an active co-parent, which showcases a refreshing cultural perspective compared to what I experienced previously. My past experiences with my ex-husband were challenging, but now I finally feel like I'm on the path to true happiness. I am gaining confidence each day and moving closer to building the happy family I've always dreamed of. The journey here taught me a lot about resilience and the complexity of relationships. Many people endure suffering due to selfish partners, and while divorce isn't always the preferred solution, enduring in silence is certainly not a virtue. It's crucial to recognize that open and honest discussions can pave the way to meaningful resolutions. In some cases, divorce turns out to be a necessary decision for personal growth and well-being. This chapter of my life has reinforced that belief, helping me move forward with a new sense of purpose and hope for the future. Hi there, I'm Laura. I'm 27 years old, and I recently found myself navigating life as a newly divorced woman after separating from my husband, Larry. Our love story began back in college, where we shared classes and quickly fell in love. We had a strong bond, but there was always a shadow over our relationship. Larry's mother, Lily. From the very beginning, Lily seemed to harbor an inexplicable dislike for me. She was always meddling in our relationship, offering unsolicited advice, and making me feel unwelcome. I expressed my concerns to Larry many times, but he struggled to confront his mother. He was torn between his loyalty to her and his love for me. Eventually, I resigned myself to endure Lily's criticisms, believing that Larry might have been unknowingly sharing too much with her, giving her fuel to criticize me. Our relationship faced many challenges, with frequent arguments about his mother's influence. But over time, Larry began to understand my perspective and stopped sharing the intimate details of our life with her. After 5 years of dating, we got married, much to Lily's dismay. Despite her attempts to interfere with our marriage, we managed to distance ourselves from her toxic presence for a while. During this period, both Larry and I found success in our careers. Although I admired Larry's accomplishments, I started to feel the need for something more personal, something that was mine alone. We had split our expenses unequally, with me covering the majority, but that didn't bother me much. What really weighed on me was the growing void I felt inside, a desire to pursue something creative and fulfilling. Drawing on my passion for design, I decided to explore graphic design as a side venture. It became a personal project, something I could call my own, and I kept it under wraps for a while, nurturing it quietly as I figured out where it might take me. I decided to take a leap of faith and enrolled in graphic design courses, investing in equipment without Larry's knowledge. My best friend, Mary, was the only person I confided in about this new venture. She was incredibly supportive, offering me both encouragement and practical advice as I developed my skills. As my confidence grew, Mary introduced me to people who were interested in hiring me, even though I was just starting out. They appreciated my work and trusted me with their projects, helping me gradually build a client base. This new source of income made a big difference in our lives. It eased the financial pressures we were facing and allowed Larry and me to enjoy a more comfortable lifestyle. With each paycheck, I saved a portion, dreaming of surprising Larry with something special as a token of my appreciation for his support. However, I hadn't mentioned any of this to him yet, and every time I thought about bringing it up, it seemed like he was avoiding serious conversations. It wasn't long before I noticed something was off. Larry became increasingly distant, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something from me. The first real sign of trouble came when Larry admitted that he had spent his entire paycheck on investments just a week after receiving it. We had a heated argument about it, but we managed to patch things up for the time being. To help make ends meet, I put in extra hours at work, which helped relieve some of the financial strain. But the following month, Larry repeated the same behavior, and I found myself feeling more and more frustrated. I couldn't understand how he could be so careless with his earnings, especially when I was working so hard to contribute to our household. In a moment of anger, I lashed out with hurtful words, though I quickly regretted my outburst. However, when Larry once again found himself without money for the 5th month in a row, I reached my breaking point. I had been meticulously managing our finances, working tirelessly not just at my day job, but also on my growing graphic design business, which was becoming our main source of income. It was becoming clear that something had to change, and I couldn't keep carrying the burden alone. I had reached my limit. "How could you let this happen again? Have you learned nothing?" I scolded Larry, my frustration boiling over. Despite his attempts to justify his actions, I was done bearing the weight of his financial irresponsibility. It was a tough decision, but I made it clear that I wasn't going to bail him out this time. Larry reacted with indignation and defensiveness, but I stood firm. "You can't gamble away your entire paycheck and expect me to cover for you," I asserted. "I won't enable this behavior any longer." Our argument quickly escalated, with accusations flying back and forth, until finally, Larry stormed out, leaving me alone to grapple with the turmoil of our crumbling relationship. In the aftermath of our confrontation, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Larry's behavior than met the eye. Suspicions began to creep in, and I wondered if Lily, his overbearing mother, might be involved. Determined to uncover the truth, I decided to do some investigating while Larry was out. It didn't take long for me to find what I was looking for. Larry had carelessly left his bank account logged in on my laptop, and what I discovered shocked me. Contrary to his claims of being broke, Larry had more than enough money squirreled away. As I scrutinized his transactions, I found nothing unusual, just the usual debits and credits. But I couldn't understand why he had been hiding his finances from me and telling lies. Seeking clarity, I delved into his messages, and the first person I noticed him texting was his mother, Lily. Their conversation revolved around our recent altercation, with Larry painting me as the antagonist, claiming I had berated him for withholding money. Lily seemed to revel in the discord, affirming her suspicions about me. As I scrolled further, I uncovered a disturbing revelation. Lily had been relentlessly disparaging me to Larry, labeling me as materialistic, and insinuating that I was only with him for financial gain. Ironically, I was the primary breadwinner in our household. Their exchanges showed how Lily's toxic influence had fueled Larry's grievances against me, magnifying minor annoyances and nurturing his resentment. The final blow came when I realized just how deeply Lily's words had seeped into Larry's mind, twisting his perception of our relationship and turning him against me. The truth was out, and it left me reeling. When I discovered their scheme to cut me off financially, it felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. Initially hesitant, Larry gradually gave in to Lily's manipulations, slowly yielding to her demands. He unknowingly provided her with more ammunition by sharing moments where I had expressed my frustrations, further fueling her animosity toward me. This betrayal was devastating, leaving me overwhelmed with hurt and confusion. Unsure of my next steps, I turned to my best friend, Mary, seeking solace in her comforting presence. I confided in her, revealing the distressing truth I had uncovered and desperately seeking her guidance in this tumultuous moment. Mary, ever the steadfast confidant, listened intently, offering her unwavering support as I struggled to process the betrayal inflicted by those closest to me. The situation weighed heavily on me, and I found myself at a crossroads, uncertain of the best course of action. It seemed glaringly obvious cut off Larry's support, wait for him to hit rock bottom, and then file for divorce. But Mary questioned the morality of such a plan, suggesting that it might be too harsh. Her concern prompted me to reconsider my approach, and she advised me to sleep on it and revisit the issue the next day. Exhausted both physically and emotionally, I welcomed the respite that sleep promised. The next morning, with the luxury of a weekend ahead, Mary and I decided to find comfort in the familiarity of a favorite movie. We drifted off to sleep in each other's company, the tranquility of the day offering a temporary sense of peace, a brief reprieve from the turmoil brewing within me. We indulged in simple pleasures, immersing ourselves in movies, enjoying culinary delights, and savoring each other's company. Despite the nagging thoughts of the previous day's revelations, I made a conscious effort to set them aside, prioritizing the much-needed break from the stress and heartache I had been experiencing. However, our peaceful reprieve was short-lived. A call from Lily shattered the calm. Reluctantly, I answered, only to be met with accusations and hostility. Her unwarranted attacks only served to heighten the tension, but with Mary's encouragement, I managed to maintain my composure amidst Lily's tirade. Then, amidst the hostility, an unexpected proposal emerged, a 40/60 split of everything between Larry and me. It was a proposition that dripped with skepticism, clearly a test of my commitment to the marriage. Despite the audacity of her demand, it left me contemplating the next steps in what was becoming an increasingly difficult and painful situation. I agreed, willing to explore any possibility of salvaging what was left of our relationship. With a tentative acceptance, we set plans in motion, culminating in a scheduled meeting on Friday to formalize the arrangement. Despite the lingering uncertainty, I resolved to face the challenge head-on, armed with newfound determination to navigate the tumultuous waters ahead. I was stunned by the turn my marriage had taken, caught between disbelief and seething anger. How could Lily brand me a gold digger? And how could Larry stand by and allow such an accusation? I had stood by him through thick and thin, supporting his endeavors even when they led to losses. I had covered for him when he lied and shouldered the burden of our shared responsibilities, all while keeping my own side hustle a secret, waiting for the right moment to reveal it. When I shared the details with Mary, her smile hinted at the brilliance of the plan. Splitting everything evenly would leave Larry with little to fall back on, given his lack of awareness about my additional income. I had initially hoped to surprise him with a lavish gift once my side venture gained traction, but now I was simply grateful to have it as a safety net. Friday arrived quickly, and Mary accompanied me for support. When we arrived home, we found Lily, Larry, and a lawyer already there, finalizing the contract. Ignoring Larry's silent plea for privacy, I approached Lily and demanded to review the terms. As expected, the agreement mandated an equal division of assets, with a clause prohibiting financial assistance between us. Reluctantly, I signed, knowing it would leave Larry scrambling financially. Predictably, problems ensued. Initially, our communication was limited to curt words, the rift between us too deep to bridge. Yet, living under the same roof required some level of interaction. Larry attempted to reach out and mend the divide, but I remained distant, resentful of his complacency in the situation. As time passed, Larry's persistent attempts to reconnect grew tiresome. The weight of our fractured relationship hung heavily over us, and I found it increasingly difficult to maintain my resolve. Despite everything, the reality of our situation was sinking in, and I knew that the path forward would not be easy. I eventually gave in. "Will you please just talk to me? We can't keep going on like this," Larry pleaded, his voice filled with a longing that caught me off guard. It was jarring to hear him express how much he missed our connection, especially after he had willingly signed away our financial unity. "What do you want me to say, Larry?" I retorted, my frustration clear. "Is that why you agreed to sever our finances completely?" His silence was deafening, revealing the deep divide between us as we stood at the brink of our shattered marriage. I struggled with the weight of our choices, unsure if reconciliation was even possible. "I just need to know where your loyalty lies, Laura," Larry implored. "Despite all the issues caused by your mother, you still choose to side with her. Is this truly what you believe is best for us? Please, Larry, don't speak ill of my mother like that. And what wealth are you so concerned about?" "I don't understand," I countered, feeling both confused and hurt. "I'm simply trying to make things right between us. Can we not lash out at each other?" "There will be no reconciliation until that contract is null and void," Larry replied defensively. "It's only been 3 weeks since we signed it, and I've seen no evidence to suggest you're not here for the money. If you're struggling financially, just let me know. I'm willing to help," I offered, trying to bridge the gap between us. "Wouldn't that be a breach of the contract?" "I won't risk violating it," I insisted. "Why are you making this so difficult? Can't we just be civil?" I could see Larry wrestling with conflicting influences, his mother's and his own. The Larry I married wouldn't have succumbed to such manipulation. That month, I focused on paying off our major debts, leaving Larry to manage on his own. With my share settled, I had more disposable income, and Mary and I indulged in lavish outings, while Larry always had an excuse for his financial constraints. My graphic design side gig was thriving, and I began to seriously consider quitting my day job. Meanwhile, Larry struggled, his portion of the pantry often bare. While a part of me felt sympathy for him, I couldn't ignore the choices he had made that led us here. I reminded myself that Larry had brought this situation upon himself, but that didn't make the unfolding events any easier to handle. Lily's unexpected visit, however, threw me off balance. She stormed into my home, her face a mask of anger, and before I could even greet her, she accused me of stealing from Larry. The words hit me like a slap in the face. Not only was I confused, but I was also immediately on the defensive. How could she possibly think I was stealing from my own husband? "What are you talking about?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're accusing me of seeking revenge on Larry because I don't like the contract he made us sign? That's absurd. Your son has been struggling all month, but it's not because I've been stealing his money to fund my outings. He has no money to steal, and you know it. And let's not forget who actually coerced us into signing that contract in the first place. You forced it upon us, and now your son is paying the price." Lily's eyes narrowed, and I could see her temper flaring. "Liar," she shouted. "I'm calling the police right now." "Go ahead," I replied, meeting her gaze head-on. "I haven't taken a single cent from your son. You won't find anything because there's nothing to find." "Then how do you have so much money?" she demanded, not backing down. "Your job doesn't pay that much more than Larry's, and he's told me you've cut back your hours. So where's all this money coming from?" I took a deep breath, deciding that now was the time to lay it all out. "I have another business on the side," I began. "A graphic design venture that I've been working on for a while now. I was planning to surprise Larry with it, to show him what I'd accomplished. But thanks to your constant meddling, that plan went down the drain. I was even going to use the money to buy you a car as a gesture of goodwill, to show you that I'm not the person you think I am." Lily looked taken aback, but she wasn't ready to relent just yet. "How much do you make from this side business?" she asked, her voice laced with suspicion. "More than you'd expect," I answered. "I've worked hard to build something successful, something I'm proud of. And all this time, I wasn't lying or trying to deceive anyone. I was simply trying to do something good, something positive. And now, thanks to your interference, everything I've worked for has been jeopardized. If you care so much about your son, maybe you should be the one supporting him instead of tearing down everything I've built." With that, I took a deep breath and reached into my bag, pulling out a set of divorce papers that I had been holding onto for this moment. The sight of them seemed to take Lily by surprise, but I was beyond caring about her reaction. I turned to Larry, who had been standing silently by, his expression a mix of guilt and resignation. "I didn't want it to come to this, Larry," I said, my voice softening as I addressed him. "I tried to make things work, even after everything that's happened. But I can't keep doing this. I can't keep living under the shadow of your mother's influence, and I can't keep pretending that everything is okay when it's not. I've worked hard to build a life for myself, and I deserve to be with someone who supports that, not someone who lets their mother tear us apart." Larry looked down, unable to meet my eyes. Lily opened her mouth to say something, but I cut her off before she could start. "This isn't just about money," I continued. "It's about respect, trust, and the foundation of a relationship that should have been built on mutual support. I've done everything I can to support you, Larry, even when things were tough. But I need to take care of myself now. I need to protect what I've built." With those words, I handed the divorce papers to Larry. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the weight of everything that had led us to this point. Lily looked at the papers, then at Larry, her face a mask of disbelief. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, and the road ahead would be filled with challenges. But I also knew that I couldn't keep sacrificing my own happiness and well-being for the sake of a relationship that was no longer healthy. As I turned to leave, I felt a sense of finality, but also a sense of relief. I had taken the steps I needed to protect myself, and now it was time to move forward. Whatever the future held, I was ready to face it on my own terms, with the knowledge that I had done everything I could to make things right. I had filed for divorce right after we signed the contract, quietly holding onto the papers until the right moment to reveal them. When I finally handed them to Larry, the shock on his face was unmistakable, but I felt no sympathy. I had given him every chance to make things right, and he had chosen his path. I expected Lily to be pleased, given how hard she had pushed for this separation. Instead, her expression shifted to one of fury as she realized the full consequences this would have for her son. I calmly informed them that I would be moving out in last weeks. I had made up my mind, and there was no going back. I agreed to continue splitting the remaining loan payments, but that was the extent of my commitment. Larry, clearly desperate, tried to plead with me, hoping to change my mind, but I remained resolute. I reminded him that this was the outcome of his choices and actions, and that we had both reached a point of no return. In the months that followed, I began to feel a sense of liberation from the toxic relationship that had been weighing me down for so long. Lily, as expected, tried to contest the divorce, likely hoping to salvage something from the situation. However, with our assets already legally separated, there was little for Larry to gain from the proceedings. In fact, he ended up losing more than he ever imagined. Unable to keep up with the mortgage payments on the house, he was forced to sell it and move back in with his mother. As for me, my life took a turn for the better. My graphic design business began to flourish far beyond what I had initially envisioned. I started landing lucrative opportunities with big brands, and my client base expanded rapidly. It was a blissful and rewarding period for me, one that filled me with a sense of accomplishment and relief. I finally felt like I was in control of my life, free from the negativity and constant stress that had overshadowed my marriage. Every day, I felt grateful that I had something to fall back on. My side business, which had started as a small venture, had grown into a successful and profitable enterprise. This financial independence spared me from the fate Larry had to endure, and it allowed me to move forward without the burden of our past weighing me down. Larry's situation was quite different. With the house sold and his financial stability shattered, he struggled to adjust. Moving back in with his mother was a blow to his pride, and I could only hope that this experience would serve as a lesson for him in the future. Perhaps he would learn the importance of responsibility, trust, and the consequences of allowing others to manipulate his decisions. But those lessons were no longer my concern. I was focused on building my own future now. I embraced the opportunities that lay ahead, excited about what was to come. The freedom to pursue my passions, the success of my business, and the peace that came with leaving a toxic situation behind filled me with a sense of fulfillment I hadn't felt in years. Life was finally moving in a positive direction, and I was determined to make the most of it. I surrounded myself with supportive friends, like Mary, who had stood by me through thick and thin. Together, we celebrated the small victories and the big achievements, knowing that this new chapter in my life was just the beginning. Looking back, I realized how far I had come and how much I had grown. The painful experiences of the past had shaped me into a stronger, more resilient person. I was no longer the woman who had been manipulated and overshadowed by others. I was now someone who knew her worth, who understood the value of independence, and who was ready to take on the world with confidence. The future was bright, and I was ready to face it with open arms. No longer burdened by the mistakes and betrayals of the past, I was free to pursue my dreams and live life on my own terms. And that, more than anything, was the most rewarding part of this entire journey.